need some music.
Yo, 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 yo. Okay. This stream is going to be a bit of a weird one because, I don't know. One of the things I like about this channel is that we can kind of just have discussions about random things. And, this particular random thing I feel like we've talked about this before, but maybe not. We probably haven't dedicated a whole topic about it. So that's what we're going to do now. We're just going to talk about. The topic today is: do you need to finish a game before you can review it? That's the topic. Now, I feel like we've talked about this before a little bit, but recently this was sparked by, for me, a Mauler clip from his EFAP podcast where they put up a James Stephanie Sterling video about their Zelda review, about their Tears of the Kingdom review. And Sterling stuff, you know, I've fucked with it in the past. Not so much anymore. I think their stuff kind of tends to be a little long-winded, and so I've kind of just fallen out of it. Or I'd like watch it until like I get the gist of it, and then I'll click off. But they put up a review a couple years ago about Tears of the Kingdom. And in their review, they gave it a 7 out of 10. So, and people were fucking upset. And one of the criticisms they threw at Sterling was, "What, you didn't finish the game, so your review is meaningless." And I don't necessarily agree with that take. And Sterling put up a video about it, just addressing why it's a bullshit take. Now, I'm gonna link the video in the description here so that if anyone wants to watch that whole thing, they can. But I'm gonna try to summarize it here for you because, like I said, their stuff tends to be a little long-winded, and I think this is gonna be summarized in 3 main points I think they're making here, which I'm gonna say I agree with these points. So, mostly. Number 1 is that people only use the argument you didn't finish the game to try to deflect any criticism, right? Which I agree with. Hamtaro in the chat, what's up? Claim number 2 is that people don't use that argument for positive reviews, regardless of how much playtime in the game they have. Which, again, I also agree with. And point number 3 is that if you did finish the game, you would more likely come out of that with a more negative, an equal or lower view on the game, right? At least from my experience, off the top of my head, there's no game that I can name off the top of my head that I was hating it 80% of the time, but that last 20% was like, oh shit, this elevates there's no game, I can't name anything that's elevated at like the final stretch. Like maybe something like Final Fantasy 13, maybe. Like that game is so fucking linear for most of it that once it does open up, it does kind of finally, all the mechanics start making sense once you can switch characters out and move stuff around and kind of start making your own party and shit. Like I can see that maybe, but is it significant enough? I don't think that's even significant enough for me to elevate what I think about that game. Also, I like that game. I know a lot of people hate that game. I like that game. So, I do want this to be a discussion. I think some of the problem with like talking about shit on the fucking internet is that people are not open to actually talking about shit. So like, I'm doing this live. This might be a little incoherent. I might ramble a little bit. I do everything live. I don't fucking script shit out. I take minimal notes. I got some notes here, but we're gonna be watching this Mauler video. It's like an hour and a half long. I watched maybe 10 minutes of it. I'm just gonna be reacting to this shit live, okay? So, but I want to have a discussion. I want people to tell me I'm wrong, and then we can have a little back and forth here. But I think I'm gonna say everything I need to say up front, and then we're gonna watch that video, and then I'm gonna pause it at points where I think I should interject. 10 minutes in, there's already one thing I wanna say about the video, but we'll get to that. My view on the whole like review thing is that the purpose of a review, I've said this before, the purpose of a review should be to assist the consumer on making a purchase decision. That is the purpose. That is the main purpose of a review. Is to tell people, hey, spend your money on this. Don't spend your money on this. Maybe wait for a sale if that's what you want to do. But that's the main purpose of a review. If you disagree with that, I'd be interested to know what you think a review is, because that's my idea. And that's not just games, it's a review for anything, Amazon reviews, movie reviews. Like you're looking at a review to know if you should buy a thing or not. Now, a lot of people, especially in fucking video games, just use reviews as like ammo. They use it as bullets in their gun, as like argument weapons to like win debates and shit. And that's not at all, like, that's what shit has become. You know, when you start putting scores on shit and people like debate what the fucking score is, that is not at all what the intended purpose of review is. But anyway, that's the purpose of review. Now, how should that review be written is a different thing entirely, because this gets into, okay, do you need to finish the game or not? Because no, I don't think you do. As long as the content of the review serves the purpose of informing the consumer, as long as it serves that purpose without any critical factual errors, that's a fine review. Yeah, that's a good review, or it's useful to someone. So if I put up a review, if I put up a 3-word review that said this game's shit, that's useful to someone. You know, it's not, you could make a purchasing decision off of that. I think that would be useful information. Now, here's what I think the problem is with review culture, is that, well, it's really just one problem. It's really just one problem, but it's at the core of all this shit. And that problem is review embargoes. I think review embargoes are fucking dog shit. It ruins everything. The embargo system is the core of all the issues we're having right now with reviews, because it incentivizes outlets to rush out a review on day one. So that means one of 3 things is going to happen. Number 1, they're going to rush that review to complete the game to get out a day 1 review, or they're going to rush out a review without finishing the game to get it up on day 1. And the reason you want to have it up on day 1 is because you want your content is going to do significantly better on day 1. You're going to get the most clicks, you're going to get the most views, you're going to get the most engagement, because that's what the review is for. That's what the embargo is for. They've set up this system to where all the outlets have a fair chance of getting their shit up on day 1. But it shouldn't be just give everyone the shit. Give them the shit. Give them all the shit at the same time. No embargo. I mean, I don't know how you would fix it, because you want some lead time for the consumer to like read a review. That's the thing, before the game comes out, so that you can make a purchasing decision. Because a lot of people just buy shit without even, I don't know. If you're the type of person that cares about the review, you're probably not the type of person that'll just buy shit on day 1, unless you already know you're gonna buy the game. Anyway, those are 2 problems. The other thing is, if you're ethical, you're gonna hold your review until you've gathered enough information to put up a review without any critical factual errors. Now I got two examples of this that I think illustrates what I'm talking about here. One of them is a game that everyone loves, and one's a game that everyone hates, but both of them suffer the same problem of them being very dense games and having a review embargo that was not long enough for anyone to experience the full breadth of those games. Number 1 is Elden Ring. Now, if you fucking know anything about the Elden Ring review cycle, you know that when that fucking shit hit, when the embargoes lifted, fucking everyone, dude, was like 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, 10 out of 10, perfect, 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 perfect. This game's fucking perfect. Buy it now. It's fucking perfect. But there was not enough time to like come to that conclusion. So for Jim Sterling's point of people don't give a fuck if you didn't finish the game, if you give it a positive review, they fucking don't, because they would have said that same shit about Elden Ring. Most of those fucking reviews did not finish that fucking game. I've got Tamar Hussein on Twitter. He said, just so it's out there, don't give anyone shit for not finishing Elden Ring for review. It's immense. It should have been sent a month ago. I played and wrote until I physically couldn't stay upright every day, and I couldn't make it. Like that doesn't sound like good conditions for writing a well thought out review. You know, like maybe I just don't feel like rushing through a game like this gives you like a well-rounded, well thought out review. Maybe I haven't read the review. I typically don't like read reviews. You know, I just play shit and then tell you what I think. But I'm just saying they put up a review and rushed it out to get the day one views, and it was a 10 out of 10. So I mean, no one do this part. Don't give anyone shit for not finishing Elden Ring. I don't think anyone got any shit for not finishing it. I don't know how X works. I don't know how to see the responses to this. But I don't think anyone got any shit for their Elden Ring reviews, because if you gave it a positive score, which you did because it's fucking Elden Ring, you no one gives a fuck, right? Which is one of Sterling's points. No one gives a fuck about your playtime if it's a positive review. And then Imran Khan also put out a thing on Twitter around the Elden Ring cycle that I believe they put up I believe they held their review, which I think is the more ethical thing to do. You hold your review until you have all the information you need, till you feel comfortable posting a review. Like I don't rush your shit to get your shit up. I just don't. I don't like that. I don't fuck with that. I don't fuck with that. And the Starfield. So Starfield is the same thing, but fucking opposite. It was a big meme that Starfield, one of the main fucking so Starfield reviewed poorly, and then on any fucking review you go to, there's a comment that says, "Oh, you didn't play. Oh, this guy only played 50 hours. This guy he didn't play enough." And it's just like, yeah, there you go. Like fucking Starfield is a perfect example in the opposite direction, because that game reviewed poorly, and one of the main criticisms was that you didn't play enough. But how fucking much is enough to know that something is either good or bad? Like, how much is enough, right? Do you have to roll credits to like, is rolling credits enough, or do you have to literally 100% complete a game? And how many hours should that take? Like a counter argument I see people give is that, well, you complete a game, it gives you more insight, but how much more insight do you need? If you play 80% of a game, is that last 20% really that more meaningful? Is that really going to change shit? Like, I really don't think so. So all of that is preamble for this Mauler video, which is titled "Jim Sterling is Terrible at Reviewing Games," which is a clip from their EFAP podcast. Now I watched 10 minutes of this and then I had to pause it because I was like, I just want to live react to this. I don't know how much of this. It's an hour and a half long. They kind of ramble about insignificant shit for a little bit, and also they clip up Sterling's video, so they're not even like watching the whole thing, though the whole thing is not entirely relevant. I'll give them that. But either way, I went through and I watched the whole Sterling video, so just so I had context, because they said they were going to clip it up, so I just wanted the full thing. And I'm going to rewind it a bit, and I just want to watch this and then just live react to it, and I'll pause it as necessary. Someone within the 10 minutes I watched, someone did say something relevant. There's just a lot of, I don't know if I'm going to skip around this video because they kind of just talk about like a lot of irrelevant shit. It's not part of the main claims being made. So again, I don't know how much of this I've allocated 2 hours to this. So, and yeah, so let's check this out.
We should do it, or aliens will abduct you. It's like, you know what, this doesn't even make sense.
Yes, aliens. This is just video games. There's no aliens involved. What's happening?
I just I take issue.
I enjoy aliens. I'm just staring at this hat.
Nothing wrong with some Isla Mouse.
I'm just gonna say it. I wore it better.
Wait, when did you have a top hat?
It was on my thumbnail for my Jim Sterling response last year.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Omega Ridley did it. It was really good.
You gonna bring it back at some point?
Absolutely, definitely,
Yeah,
yes,
so.
100%, every time.
Well then, let us see this introduction of the topic.
I like lettuce.
Video game reviewer. Today, well, some of you may have seen this episode coming. We will, of course, be touching on my...
By the way, if you're going to
shall
do like
we
the CRT like monitor effect, you need to have the lines moving. Like if it's static, it just looks weird.
Okay, they talk about the COT effect.
So that the lines...
Display thing. This just looks...
Spice-inviting review for The Legend of Zelda, The Tears of the Majora...
Oh my god, Indigo Gaming, welcome to the show. We're,
Indigo Gaming.
Timers.
jump right into that, watch together, and you can join us. We're about to start the discussion of whether or not one must complete a game.
I'm not going to talk shit about anyone here. This is not me talking shit, by the way. This is just me. I just want to discuss the topic, really.
Majora's Mask of the Link to the Kingdom of Time.
I feel like everyone, I don't know who these people are. I know Mauler. I think I've seen some of his stuff.
I think that cut was to be like, yeah, you big mighty bow broke, because that's the big thing, right? Equipment damage,
But
degradation.
I think most of these guys do like long form game analysis videos.
Annoying in the first one. It was better in the newer one.
But still in the new
Still annoying. Still annoying.
Damn them.
Argument, a particular flavor of rhetoric that turns up whenever a controversial review comes out and the fandom gets mad, which it always does because the fan base is exhausting.
You can leave whenever you want.
You can leave.
Why do they do this if they find it that like exhausting? I just don't get it.
That's the thing. What do you have to say about this? Just like, well, I mean, yeah, that's I don't know. It's just that's just what happens, I guess.
I agree. I don't like fandoms.
Welcome to the internet.
Like, yeah, you don't have to go and fist fight them.
Mm-hmm.
But you could.
Yeah.
But not,
You know that if you were reviewing silent films back in the day, that there'd be a fan base who are like, "Hey, you fucking gave this an 8. This was a 9. Piece of shit." It's not exactly a big
Bingo.
change. But you know what? Fair enough. If they've been particularly angry this time, let's see what they've said.
The topic I want to get off of my heaving productive chest this week is the case
Heaving?
of fandoms
Why did you say that?
arguing that a review
If
is
you were in better shape,
invalid
you wouldn't heave when you
because
spoke.
the reviewer didn't finish the game. An argument that presents a real tactical own goal if they actually got what they claimed they
interesting.
wanted.
All right, that's our hook. But the truth is, you don't want reviewers to finish games.
What, because they would form a
Clever.
worse opinion of it? Is that...
The longer I play the game, the worse my opinions get.
Unless you have 200 hours in a game, I don't want to hear your review on it. Like that's like minimum for me personally, because there's so many things to
Jesus
explore.
Christ.
Wait,
Yeah, no,
even
that's
in like
legit.
a
200.
1 hour game?
200.
200?
No, in terms of like a mechanically heavy a game that's heavy on mechanics, that's going to be important to me. I really want to know someone who's going to be completely thorough. But if
Wait,
it's just a 1 hour game,
Wait,
then-
let's take
Okay.
let's take a normal game like BioShock. How many hours should you have in that? Before?
okay.
What would you say?
That's a couple hours with that wouldn't bother me. But something like
A couple?
Legal-
Wait, you went from 200 to a little? Killing yourself.
okay,
Oh my
compare that to something like League of Legends or Dead by Daylight, something that's like really mechanically focused. I want to know that they've had an extensive amount of time in the game.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it here. This is good. I disagree with this point because I think he's talking about a different type of games coverage. I think I said before, I think this panel of guys I think they mostly do like long form video analysis of video games, and that's a very different type of thing. It's a very useful type of thing for a very different type of person. But when we're talking about a review, I think again, my original point is that a review should assist the consumer in making a purchasing decision. I don't think a normal consumer gives a fuck about a 200-hour breakdown of every fucking mechanic of every hero in fucking League of Legends. I don't think the average guy doesn't need that. They just want to know if the fucking game is good or not. Tell me if the game's good. They don't need this 8-hour analysis of which, again, like shout out to like Patrician TV, who just does these fucking 8-hour, fucking 12-hour analysis videos, very in depth, very useful for explaining why something is. Like, but I don't think the average guy needs to know why. They just need to know what, right? The why is just another layer of depth that I think is just not necessary for just a typical review. So I think this guy is just he's looking for something else. He's not looking for a review, really. He's looking for like an in-depth analysis mechanically, someone breaking down shit, which is just not what a review is supposed to be. So let's continue.
But something that's a little bit more story based, then that's not gonna be. I'm gonna have a little more leeway with that.
Well, because I was going to say with BioShock, I probably want them to complete it, preferably twice,
Yeah.
depending on what kind of review they want to do. If they're just doing like this is what I thought of it when I played it once, like whatever. That's almost like the premise for all of this. It's just label what you actually did at the beginning, and then tell me what you felt and thought. I guess so that we know the
There's
scope.
loads of different things going on within this space we call reviewing. There's exhaustive analytic appraisals,
Yeah.
and then there's just the sort of first impression. This is what I made of it. So recommendation, no recommendation, based on what. you
Okay,
think
hold
of my
on.
take.
There's not. He's kind of said what I just said, but he said there's like exhaustive analytics, and then there's like here's what I think. But there's in between that is just a straight up, just a normal ass fucking review. It's just a normal fucking review. Like Mauler said, you had to play BioShock at least twice to give a comprehensive review, and I just don't agree with that. I don't agree with it. Complete it. Not only do you have to complete it, you have to complete it twice. Like, what didn't you get the first time? Maybe if you just want, if there was some things you might have missed, you go back in like on some like specific areas. But fucking, I do not agree. I do not agree with that.
Based and how it aligns with yours, sort of thing.
Yeah, this actually reminds me a lot of this talk that Total Biscuit had way back in the day, and actually, I actually asked him that question when I was at his panel like way back when at DragonCon, and he was saying that he specifically kind of does he did his impressions videos like mid game to get his like kind of on the ground. But he did.
The series was called WTF.
He's talking about Total Biscuit, who
and there were always impressions.
never
videos,
did
and I think that
reviews. He
has
always
some
did
value,
first
but
impressions.
I
You would
think
label
that a
them as
review
such.
Definitely demands that you have a very thorough understanding of the game, at least completed it once, and depending on the kind of game where it has like multiple paths, multiple classes, etc., you might actually have to play it twice or 3 times to get a full opinion.
That's where, because it's like, where's the harm? Why are people angry? And it's like, it's usually when you give a bad review and you weren't familiar with the mechanics, or you got it wrong. That's where people get upset.
I have a great example that Tonald actually did a review. He actually did a collab video with me a long time ago, before he blew up, and he did a review of the Friday the third game.
I'm
and
gonna
he had
skip this.
filled-
I saw up to this part. I think what he's saying is one of his friends did put up a review of a game. I think it was like Friday the 13th. And he said there were some factual inaccuracies in his review because he only played it for like 45 minutes or something. I think that's what he's saying. Now, again, if you're putting up a review with factual inaccuracies, that is a bad review. And you should get called out on that. However, there are plenty of reviews, good reviews, fine reviews that do not have factual errors. And you don't need to finish a game to not have factual errors. You just need to know what the fuck you're talking about. Okay.
You're not going to have an understanding of the mechanics or the bugs or like, you know, what actually is overpowered and the things that people actually want to know, the proper information. You're just going to have your based impression. And if they make that clear in the beginning, that's fine, but a lot of the people don't.
The fairly frustrating truth of things is that mastery has a really strong correlation with familiarity with mechanics.
Yes, that's where I got my crazy 200 number from.
Yeah.
I should have referenced League before I just threw out that number because that's so like open-ended for video games. But
what would an analytic appraisal of? Sorry for the sidetrack, but what would that even look like if you were to like, I'm going to review League of Legends?
That's the problem. Is League evolves every week, so
seasons.
And it's also one of the most complex games ever made.
Yeah. I think the approach you'd have to take is going through showing a bronze match, silver match, all the way up to challenger, and explaining the different the different criteria of improvement. That'd probably be the only way you can do it. Because like, how are you gonna explain that to someone who's never played the game?
Oh man.
Okay, I've played a little bit of League of Legends. It's not. I feel like, again, they're talking about something different from a review. I think they're talking about something very analytical. From an analytical standpoint, breaking down League of Legends would be a very daunting task. But just making a straight up review of it, just saying, hey, this is what this game is. It's a MOBA, it's a PvP game, team based, and every hero has different skills, and you know, it might take you a while to get acclimated to those skills and find the hero that suits you. But once you do, you're gonna have a good time. Like, I don't feel like you need to break shit down to such a minuscule level to give just a normal ass fucking review. It's a very different thing than something like a very analytical, like an analytical thing.
Even that would take forever.
And then you take into account seasons and stuff like that. Like I got into Smite for a while, and then I think season 3 came out, and they completely changed the entire health regaining system and all that stuff.
God.
And I put about 200 hours in that game, and I felt like a complete newbie again. It was crazy.
You blink, and then you don't even know what happened with these patch notes. You have to.
So these are also another thing is like games as a service, which do evolve over time. I do believe there's been some back and forth on different outlets on how they review those games. Like take Destiny for instance. Destiny's evolved a lot since it launched to where it is now. That I think they've some outlets have gone back to review live service games as they evolve, because it's just, again, it's more useful for the consumer to have updated information as the game evolves. There's not like, it's not like, some outlets do just review the game once and just leave it at that. I think that does a disservice. But League of Legends is the same shit, like Smite is the same shit he's talking about. Like, if it's a game that evolves like that, they should go back and update their review for the latest version of that game. I know IGN does this. I don't know about any other outlets, but I know IGN goes back. They have like a 2023 review of Destiny, I think. So
They like.
Oh yeah.
so
I mean, I play
consistent with
League
these
like
things.
once or twice a year with some friendos who played all the time.
Mhm.
And every time I log in, it's like, I don't know any of this. What is this? Explain this to me.
You can't recognize the items, like you know the map. That's it. They don't change
Yeah.
the map, but
Why does
everything
this
else.
character I've played a lot
Who knows?
completely
Half the
different? It
characters
has
you
none
played
of
have
these.
changed.
It has none of the skills anymore that I know.
Yeah.
Just
Like-
pray they weren't reworked. Like who knows? Like they're probably reworked twice. before
Yeah.
they go back.
This brings us to the real thing I'm
Wow.
targeting
Let's call
to
him.
tackle.
You know, I just
Ring. Yay, Lord of Ring.
people at home can't see it, but I just skipped like
I was gonna say there's no way you just.
Boy.
I skipped a lot.
I hate
Gollum is a good
video
example
essays.
because most people who've played this have not finished the game, though everyone has a fucking opinion about it.
19 minutes? We're 19 minutes into the video now.
We have
Oh, 19 oh my goodness.
yes.
All of that was incoherent rambling.
Though
from
no
the
one comes at those
No, I
reviews
just- I
as
love
like,
that
hey, you didn't
Gollum
finish
inspires,
the
like, a
fucking
sense of
game, but you
endearing
gave it like a
like,
3.
everyone's just like, oh, there he is, look at him go.
Yay, look at him go. Yeah, go,
had a good
Gollum,
time
go,
with that.
Gollum, go.
Yeah.
Somehow.
So much you could say.
It
on
wasn't
this
his fault the
topic,
game
and he
was
only
shit.
manages like 10 minutes on it.
Apparently, because like this is the thing I checked through, and I was like, this was the part I found interesting. So maybe it's just me, but
Right.
you know, don't want to spend 10 years on a video all about Gollum, possibly, or Zelda.
I'm not here to defend the concept that reviewers don't have to finish games. No, I'm here to point out the tactical stupidity of using that concept to defend a video
That
game
seems
from
like
a
a
Interesting
misguided approach.
point of view. Well, obviously, I imagine the same for you, but it's like, wait, what is going to be the argument?
Well,
There
just
is
why wouldn't you talk about the principled position of whether you need to complete a game to do a review of a game? Why would you go?
Yeah, are you
"No,
ethically
you
Yeah,
responsible
just brush
for
it off
that?"
instantly.
Instead, it's like, no, you don't want that. Okay.
Well, it's just
I'll
really-
tell-
It's
I'll
super
tell you what
straightforward
you want.
argument. You don't play the game enough, you get things wrong, and then the game's reputation suffers. Did you do something wrong, or should that be okay? Should that just be fine? I think it's, you know,
Elaborate on both.
Again,
positions.
they're assuming that you've gotten stuff wrong in your review because you didn't play enough. Obviously, that's bad. But you don't need to finish a game. Most games don't change much between 80% completion and 100% completion. Most games don't change in a significant way that would make any review you write at an 80% point factually inaccurate at a 100% point. Even if you're talking about factual stuff, because there's just stuff that you can talk about generalizing in the game that just will never change. So I don't think they agree that you can not complete a game and not have factual inaccuracies in it. So also, like, I don't think anyone on this panel disagrees with anyone, but it would be nice to have someone on that disagreed even a little bit. Be like, well, hold on. Like, everyone just kind of agrees with each other, and it's a little. They're not really having much of a discussion. It's kind of just yeah. This is, you got to finish the game.
I
But,
think it's
okay.
fine for you to have the position that is a fine thing to do, and a human error should be expected, sort of thing. But I also think it's fine to be like, yeah, you should avoid that at all costs, and we should condemn it when we find it. That sort of thing. But you know, that discussion doesn't get had. We have a different one in this video. Also, hi, John.
Hello.
Dorn.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome. I don't know who you have or have not met here, so everyone just shout hi. Hi.
Hi.
There we go.
Hi.
We did it. Everyone's met each other now.
There, all right, we've all met. Wasn't that fun?
Big mean reviewer what didn't like it. You didn't even finish the game is often screamed through a veil of assumption by
game's really
gamers
good.
furious that a product they're hyped for got a score.
I mean, you can't be this incredulous when a lot of reviewers do
Yeah.
not finish the game, and you can tell.
Yeah. If you are a game reviewer, then asking them to finish the game generally is not unreasonable.
And
It's like when you review the, can you use the product before you review it? You know.
Loaded with assumptions. I'd say it's loaded with one big one, which is true, right? Which is you didn't complete it.
Yeah.
Then the ones that follow through from that is the less you play, like the more you play, the more information you're going to gain about the game, the more comprehensive your understanding is going to be. That's pretty intuitively. That just makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Unlike film, where you can watch the first 10 minutes and then use footage from all of it because you have the file. A lot of the time with games, people can tell how much you completed from looking at your footage. They're like, wait a minute,
Say,
Yep.
why
Wait,
you
you've
this
only
is
got the
all
level
in the
1
early
sword.
portion of the game. That's right.
Something you unlock 7 minutes into the game, they don't even like
No.
mention it. You know, like there's so
This
many
was
things-
something that was an
goes on.
issue in Jim Sterling's Final Fantasy review. The 16, the new one, or
That's the
15?
one.
Yes.
16.
16 is the newest
Whichever
one.
one we're on. Final Fantasy New was all of Jim Sterling's footage was from a particular point in the game. So it's like, oh.
Well, I
Hmm.
think that was because that was the crux of the point that Sterling was making about the game and not liking it. But it was strange nonetheless.
Someone just mentioned like the Cuphead reviews, like only the tutorial, right? Or was that just gameplay? I can't remember.
I don't know if they're saying that. Well, because the footage is from early game, you didn't finish the game, or you didn't play enough. Like you can't. The footage is chosen like arbitrarily, based on. I mean, I'm sure no one wants to show end game shit because there would be a lot of spoilers in the end game shit. So I feel like if you're showing footage in your review, you would probably be showing early to mid game shit. So if you're criticizing a review based on just the footage alone being from early shit, then that is not. I feel like that you don't really have a lot of ground there to stand on. But all right.
You're talking about the
Like,
famous-
what was
Like
that?
there's reasons why you wouldn't show in the game shit,
Yeah,
obviously, for
Yeah,
spoiler
that
reasons.
wasn't a review, right? That was
being
just
one
No,
big
that
one.
was just,
No,
that was just something that got
poking fun.
uploaded for some reason.
They were
Why
just
did
poking fun at him.
making fun.
Why did they post that?
To make fun of him.
I don't know, but thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
just saying, why did the original, like the company that he worked for, why would they post that thinking, yeah, this is good, this is good, people will love
This
this.
makes us look reputable at our jobs, yes.
Any Cuphead footage is good Cuphead footage.
Wasn't that then there was the Doom Eternal one, right? There was
Yeah.
Same guy.
Oh yeah.
Same
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Good old Dean.
He's very bad at video games.
Deemed too low. Hell, sometimes they ironically say this about games they haven't played, attacking reviews of stuff that
Well,
isn't
it
even out.
That
Well,
doesn't
they
matter.
didn't play them because they
It
were
doesn't
waiting for
matter.
your review to see if it's worth playing.
Well, a lot of the time you're going to have access first because you're
Yeah.
press. But even then, people don't need to have even played the game to have the perspective that you ought to play a game to completion before you review it.
Exactly.
Like, what does it mean? Does it like the principle develops in real time? It's like you need to have played to completion every game that I personally have played. With all the other ones, I can't have an opinion.
Yeah, like you
on them.
can't review my review until you've played the game fully. Like, no. There's
I
plenty
don't
we can
know
review.
about that.
even.
Exactly.
I think it's like a basic expectation of a reviewer that they had played the whole game. Like that, like if you want to be extensive and play it several times, that's preferred. But at least finish the game once. That's like the base requirement, I'd say.
Out yet. This argument is treated by many phantoms as the ultimate gotcha, the holy grail of
Phantoms,
they got you
self-soothing
with it, didn't ya?
justice.
It sounds like they got you.
Sounds
You're
like
very,
they got
very,
you anyway.
very upset.
You sound a bit big mad about it.
Yeah.
If
No,
they
not Jim Sterling.
Bit
They never
bold.
get mad.
can prove a reviewer
sound a
didn't
bit
finish
bald.
a game or just convince themselves of it, they can discredit said review completely. Of course,
Well, no, the point would be that the review has discredited itself. Like they're trying to point that out. It's,
They would say that there's something wrong with
because
it.
it's rare that they would simply say you didn't even finish the game. But even if that's something that's being said, it's not hard for people to pick up what the point is. Like, oh, so they fucked up, or they've got things wrong, or they're not very good. and they couldn't beat the later levels, sort of thing. Which is another thing, by the way. The most passionate fans don't want to hear you talk about how hard the first few levels were and how you didn't like that. They're gonna be like, okay.
Well, part of the problem is that people have. It's the reason why people do harp on this stuff, like we were talking about with like the Cuphead gameplay. If that's your mode of play for that game, that's going to be pretty useless. The information the perspective you have on that game is going to be pretty useless for most people because you're just not playing it at the same level that they are. And I'm not even talking about like an extremely high level of play, but just like a normal average level of play. And people, when people buy these games, a lot of the people who are going to be looking at these reviews probably have some expectation of playing it to the end. So you probably need to try to mirror, the experience that those people are going to have and want to get information about from.
Again, I think Elden Ring is a perfect example here because a lot of those reviews came out and did not finish the game. And they straight up stated that they didn't finish the game. Yet, because those reviews were so positive, no one gave a fuck that they didn't finish the game. Or that maybe it was like too difficult for the reviewer and that's why they didn't finish. Motherfuckers didn't finish that game and still put out glowing reviews. I don't know why there's a double standard between, well, I'm reviewing this poorly and now it's a problem that I didn't finish it, but if I review this positively, it's fine. Like, it's not, there shouldn't be this double standard. If your issue with not finishing the game is factual inaccuracies, then that should be your issue with it. You should just say that. Don't be like, oh, you didn't finish the game, so this review is no. Be like, no, what you said in this review is wrong. Maybe because you didn't finish the game, so you should go back and finish it, or something like that. Bring up like the actual issue. Don't bring up like, don't try to beat around and try to do this like all encompassing or you didn't finish it type shit. Okay.
And the only way someone can discredit something you've said that's incorrect about a game is by having more knowledge than you have, which is usually going to come from them having played the game, which they usually can't do because you're press and you have it early.
Mm-hmm. It's relevant for Armored Core just coming out because already having people on it's like, the first boss is too hard, this is a bad game. It's like, have we still not arrived at the point where it's like, oh, FromSoft game, that's probably going to be a hard game.
Yeah.
And just imagine all the games that you've played. Like, if everybody's played MGS5, I have not played all the way through it, but imagine reviewing the game after playing like the first 2 hours versus the next 50.
MGS5 is like 100 hours.
Okay, you're not going to review that game at 2 hours. Like, I understand what you're trying to say, but I understand what you're saying. I understand what this guy's saying, right? Realistically, no one's going to review that game at the 2 hour mark. Are you insane? Like, I'm gonna give a reviewer a benefit of the doubt that if they're gonna review a fucking 300-hour game, let's just say a game is like 300 hours, I'm gonna give them the benefit of the doubt that they played a sufficient amount of that game to give any sort of a review of it, right? Not that they played 2 hours. If they did play 2 hours of it, I would hope that they said that and be like, hey, I played 2 hours of this and I fucking hate it. So, or they love it. Either way, I would hope they would say that they played so little of it. But again, if they could write that review and it be completely factually consistent with the reality of that game, then I'd be like, okay. I mean, there's some games that just do not change from the 2 hour mark to the 200 hour mark. There's some games that do that. So I'm not saying that you couldn't write that review. I'm just saying it would be difficult to write that review.
Or something, I don't know.
Yeah, but like,
it, and I have 50 hours.
I don't
in the
even
game.
know if I finished it. If I got to the point that
I
was
didn't
the
finish
end.
it.
That was
I think I got when they started recycling the missions. I
that's
thought,
where I
okay,
fell
yeah,
off.
I'm done.
I came to a point where I thought I was done, and it was like, okay, now here's more. It's like, wait, what? I thought we're okay. And then I stopped.
After you got
MGS5 doesn't change at that point. I feel like you could write a review at that point. At the point, all these guys, none of these guys finished that game, right? At the point they all stopped playing that game, you could write that review, and nothing would be wrong, except if you're talking about like story shit. But like if you're talking about a review, if you're like reviewing that game, you probably shouldn't be getting into the beat for beat story shit, right? But the gameplay just straight up does not change. Hamtaro said the discussion review stream is excellent, by the way. Listening while I work. That's dope. That's dope, man. Yeah, I just wanted to, I don't know. This is kind of just a supplemental podcast. I know we didn't do the podcast last week. So I'm just trying to fill in that gap a little bit with some different type of content. I typically don't do shit like this, but I saw this pop up last night and I was like, I'm feeling like I need to talk about this. So, but if you have any thoughts, feel free to throw your thoughts in here. If I'm saying anything crazy or but yeah, like Metal Gear Solid 5, it just doesn't change very much from the point that these guys all jump off. From the point you think the game is over and it's not, you could write a review at that point and be like, this is what this game is. And there's more of it. So I don't know. There's okay, let's go.
a skull face.
I don't
It reminds me
even
of
remember.
like DS2, where it's like, oh, Dragon Rider again. It's like, yeah, but he's on a really small platform. That's different.
Great.
And he just falls off it. And you're like, oh.
That was an old SNES game trick where, like, after you defeat all these bosses, they would just have a final boss rush at the end and just recycle every single boss. Like, almost every game did that.
They did that in Devil May Cry 4, but that's because the game was like horrendously unfinished. The
Oh, yeah.
entire back half of the game is backtracking through the same levels as a different character, and then you also get boss rushes of all of the old bosses just over again.
Was that the
I
one
love
with
that.
Arrow?
Metal Gear Solid
Yep.
5 just reminded me of something that is related to the way that games are reviewed. I could be wrong about this, but as I remember it, a lot of the initial reviews that came out for Metal Gear Solid 5 were the product of a 5-day long, 8 hours per day like boot camp where they had
Yes,
to play the
yep.
game and try to complete it within that time. And so plenty of reviewers would have needed to it was the chicken hat that made you invulnerable.
Yep.
And so you think about the idea of what are the optimal ways of essentially creating and presenting a review to people. Playing a game under those conditions where you're in a rush to get it done would be like another example of how
Okay,
the way that
hold
you go
on,
about-
because he's saying this for like a specific review event, and those do exist, but those conditions are no different than normal fucking review embargo conditions. Like, they still have to rush to get these reviews out on day one if they want to get like the views and shit. Those review event conditions are like normal conditions. The only difference is you're just doing it in the comfort of your own home on like a normal review embargo, as opposed to doing it at an event where they wine and dine you, which could lead to an improved, like, if they give you very good conditions for reviewing that game, it could lead to some fuckery where they've wined and dined you. They've made it a very nice experience for you while you play that game, so it can taint how you like feel overall. But the rushing to get the shit out, that's a normal fucking conditions, man. That's normal fucking review embargo shit. Every fucking outlet gets these games early and they try to rush their shit out to get their review up on day one. Now, if you're ethical about it, you're gonna hold your review if you don't have enough time. But otherwise, you're rushing to get that shit out, or you're just not finishing that game and still putting up a review. I know IGN does, like, I think GameSpot does the same thing, where they'll do like a review in progress, where they'll put up a review on day one, but they'll tell you, we're still working on it. Which I don't know if I like that, because no one gives a fuck. no one gives a fuck that it's still in review. They're still gonna look at it. They're still gonna get their clicks and benefit from it. But I don't know. I guess it's important that they're saying, "Hey, we didn't finish it, and we're still working on it." But okay, let's go.
It can sort of change your experience with the game, the information that you pull from the game, and what you're going to provide to players who aren't going to be playing it like that. It's really important, and it probably ought to be encouraged more in reviews. Some level of disclosure about the way that you went about it, not necessarily for not just for circumstances like that, but how many times did you play it? How long did it take you to complete it? Like, this information is not gonna, it's never gonna be unproductive to be clear about how much time you've spent with the game and how you did it.
And the environment that they are put into, like, you know, this kind of super fast kind of expo, like, where you get gift bags and you're kind of like, you got a paid hotel and, you know, food and everything like that. Like, there's a certain energy to that.
Timur Hussein,
imagine
his Elden Ring review. We said it was like a miserable experience from
versus
and he was not wine and dine like some of these places were. Who are like shouting when their favorite hero shows up on screen, things like that. You're going to get two very different experiences.
Watching it in a theater with the people who made the movie sat to your left and to your right after they paid for you to come here and paid for your room, and they're watching you and looking at you the whole time. Did you like that? Wasn't that a funny joke?
Yeah.
Laugh at it.
Laugh. Aren't you laughing? Isn't it fun? Look how much everyone's like. How come you're the only one in here not laughing?
Yeah, you're not gonna get
You're not
gonna get an honest opinion in that from someone in that situation, like with all that pressure. Like it's
well, yeah, and we haven't even talked about the cultural element of just the quicker the better every time for everything.
Yeah,
quicker.
With reviews that everybody feels very much especially for these outfits, right? Like journalist websites, especially the smaller ones, that there's like a real pressure to get it out as soon as possible. You know, that the embargo date is the date you want your review out, because later people don't care as much, people are less interested, you lose out on those tasty views.
Your service isn't as necessary.
Yeah.
It's like the difference.
Doesn't work for games. Doesn't work for games.
Like, imagine watching Home Alone 4 on DVD. It'd be the worst experience ever, but being like Rich Evans, watching it right next to Macaulay Culkin and making fun of it would be the most hilarious thing in the world. So it's just like, it's all about context, especially with, I got kind of caught up in games like, you know, when I went to expos and stuff and played Overwatch before it came out, people would stand in lines for 3 hours to play like 2 matches of that game. And then when it came out, you know, people got bored of it. You know, it was a good game for a while and people were really excited for it, but the environment of like, oh my god, you got to wait in this huge line and
people got bored of it. The game was fucking incredible when it came out.
The public, people were waiting for hours to play Lawbreakers, and that game died really fast. Yeah.
Their triumphant invalidation won't make the review disappear, and it won't stop them being so fragile they get violently angry over a reviewer.
What is violently
angry about? I mean, but also you're getting angry over their reactions.
Yeah, so. I'm so tired of it. No one cares. Nobody cares.
Also, Jim Sterling's the one who Jim Sterling has opinions regarding violence and who it's okay to enact it against, so I don't really care about their opinion on
but at this point, are we saying if someone says, like, this review is shit, you should go off? Are they like, whoa, violence?
Violence.
Wow. No, what do they consider violence?
Imagine the reviewer just starts out by telling you how his morning went. It's like, it's not relevant. I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your morning, Theo.
I'm not interested in my morning.
And I was there when it happened.
I don't know. I guess I got up. I made some coffee. I saw a little bored.
7 out of 10, so they'll be left with annoying and hollow feeling in their terminally irrational minds when they find themselves unable to move
Not me,
on.
though.
I
But still,
get it, man.
They believe in the
you're upset.
I guess it's just really funny.
Guys buried in salt.
By the way, I cut out loads of just ripping into annoying comments. That's what.
Well, we're 20 minutes into a
That's what we
29-minute
skip,
video.
Why we gotta be so dramatic either?
He's just been bitching so far.
What is
He
the
hasn't made a
script?
point.
What does the script look like? Is it just internet people are freaks, like 20,000?
I said the same thing with Sterling's videos. They kind of run
The truth's gotta
pretty
get out there.
long.
accusation.
Their videos are very
The sheer pointlessness
verbose.
and ineffectiveness
That's why I
of
kinda
the
stopped
argument
watching.
Isn't what's stupid, however. No, That's not what makes you didn't play the game a fucking imbecilic way to defend a video game from a review.
But it would totally be... This is the thing that annoys me about the video. It's like, can you not accept a single possible time where it would be valid? Not one.
Mm-hmm.
Nope.
Yeah, where someone plays it for 10 minutes and then does a review and says and presents it as being pretty comprehensive. Surely everybody would agree
Well, yeah,
at
like,
that point.
You kill a couple
wait
of
minute.
hollows in Dark Souls, and then you say, like, the combat is absolute shite. You just kill a bunch of
Yeah,
things.
but
that can't
who
even
does
move.
that? Who has done that? Who's played a game for 10 minutes and go, okay, here we go. This is my extensive, exhaustive review of this game, which I only played 10 minutes of, but I'm not going to tell you that. Because, I mean, if you can't tell just from the content of that review that they played 10 minutes of it, again, it would be filled with inaccuracies and they wouldn't know what the fuck they're talking about. It would be blatantly obvious that they didn't play enough. Because here's the thing, okay, they're talking about Sterling's review of Tears of the Kingdom. Now, if you go to Jimquisition and you read that review, it's a totally fine review. If they didn't say they didn't finish the game, you wouldn't know that they didn't finish the game, because the content of that review is totally fucking fine. There are no inaccuracies in that review whatsoever, other than the fact that they didn't like the game. They gave the game a 7, which doesn't even mean they didn't like it. It's just they think it's average. But people see a fucking 7 on Tears of the Kingdom and they go fucking ape shit and try to scramble for whatever thing they have that they can defend that they can defend the game with. And whatever bullet that you gave them, the bullet of, oh, well, I didn't finish the game, but I played enough of it to give you this factually consistent review. No one gives a fuck. You didn't finish it, so we're going to use that to destroy you.
Well,
Be like,
if we're talking about this game, like we're talking about Tears of the Kingdom, if you said, yeah, no, I completed the opening like Sky Islands, and then when I got to land, that was it. I was done.
Yeah, you're missing
You
like
know?
5-6 game mechanics you can't even use yet.
Well,
But then
you're
you're gonna,
missing like 95% of the game, aren't you?
yeah, exactly. So it's like, yeah,
But no, it's
probably.
stupid every time.
Are you gonna talk about that part? I don't think so. If you do, how? Did you watch videos on it instead of playing the game? Yeah.
What makes it a strategic own goal is the fact that if they got what they wanted and they forced every reviewer to play every game to thorough completion, it would be far more likely to lower a score than raise it.
So
Would
it
it?
was.
Wait, what?
So it was what
What?
I guess.
Is that bad?
the case?
What?
I think the keyword here is forced, because
Yeah.
the way that it's being contextualized is that the reviewer is, they've done what they wanted to do, and then someone says, and sits them down, chains them up, and says, you must get to the credits before you can say a thing. And of course that would be unpleasant to the point where it would infect your own playthrough.
No, that's
But what
not.
people are
It's not what they're
advocating for
saying.
is, can you please have integrity, accuracy, and honesty? That's what they want.
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that
That's not what they're saying. Sterling's saying that most games you already have you can play enough of most games without finishing them to know exactly what the fuck it's about. And also, a lot of games you get your fill of them at a certain point before you might finish them. Like some games just overstay their welcome. Some games start off fucking incredible, but then as it goes on, it like declines. It either declines or it just kind of just stagnates. It just stays the same. Rarely, what Sterling's saying is rarely, if you're like at I use this like 80% mark. I think 80% is a good benchmark for you're probably ready to review this game at like an 80% mark for most games, right? So if you get to an 80% mark, if you're loving that game, if you're absolutely fucking loving it, you play that last 20% and you could fucking like it could ruin itself. Like rarely if I'm at like a 9 with a game and I'm at 80%, rarely that last 20% is going to take it to a 10. If anything, it's just going to stay where it is. But sometimes that last 20%, it brings it down, maybe like a point for me, maybe. Like some games just overstay their welcome. Some games just do not. They don't stick the landing sometimes. Now, if I'm reviewing a game, and it happens to be a game that doesn't stick the landing, can I write a review with that knowledge? Can I write a review with the 9 that I have previously of that 80%, that 80% that I have, without it being, if that last 20% doesn't stick the landing? Can I write a review without knowing that? I think so. I think that's fine. Yeah. Like, I don't think. I think it's fine. Why? I don't know. I don't have a reason. I just think it's fine. Now, if we went the other way, say I was hating a game for like 80%, I would never. There would never be any circumstance where if I was hating a game for like 80% of the time I was playing it, I would never. That last 20%, who gives a fuck? It was miserable for 80% of the time I was playing it. I don't give a fuck about that last 20%. So like in the inverse, it makes total sense. But for some reason, when it's like not, people just can't comprehend that, oh, you didn't finish it. You gotta finish it. Like I don't it's like this double standard of, well, if the game is good, then, well, you gotta finish it. But if I don't think it's good, then you fucked up, or whatever. Anyway, that's not what Sterling's saying. He's really highlighting that word, forced. I think they're using that word as a. I don't know why they're using that word, but Sterling used that word forced as if to say you're like held at gunpoint, forced to finish a thing that you don't like. But even if you are liking it, it can fall apart at the end. And that, I think that's what Sterling's saying, is like, it can fall apart. Like, you're rarely going to increase a score based on that last 20%. It's either going to stay the same or it's going to decrease. And that's what they're saying. They're not saying anything about being forced to play a game. Okay. That's the point I was trying to make. So, okay, here we go.
There's going to be goobers who are just saying it to discredit you and everything, but
we move past those guys and actually get.
You don't have to care about the random freak on the internet who says nonsense. You don't, like the guy in your YouTube comments. You don't have to care about him. I promise.
Yep. You should have evolved past this a long time ago.
I was about to say that on the internet. You gotta have thicker skin than this.
No matter what you do, he's gonna be there.
And like, imagine giving a review is like, yeah, I watched the first hour of the latest Marvel movie, and it is pretty good. You guys should go see it. I give it an 8 out of 10. It's like,
that's the thing.
Or watching half the episodes of a show or something.
That system should be approved of by basically every reviewer if they're going to have this kind of point of view. And it would be insane if you were to, because we do it these days for TV shows. A lot of reviewers review the whole show based on the first few episodes because that's like what they get given, which is already weird.
Secret Invasion was getting decent reviews based, which is already pretty terrible. You know, those first couple episodes, but wow.
But if they'd seen that last episode, would they have been as positive? Probably not.
Well, maybe they would have been. They weren't quite sure what the tide, where it was going to turn.
Okay, under that, yeah, I thought that.
I think they're talking about like TV shows and movies, and I would say a movie is fine. I would say you could review a movie. The problem is you don't really have much of an excuse to not finish a movie, right? Movies are significantly less of a time investment than a video game is, so you don't really have much excuse for not finishing a movie, right? A TV show, there's a little more nuance to a TV show, because a show each episode could have different writers, it could have different directors, it could just be different. Like, it can change significantly from episode to episode, that even from season to season. So, in a way that you're most likely not going to get out of a video game or a movie. Like Game of Thrones was a perfect example. There was a point in time where I was like kind of just passively watching Game of Thrones, but there was I don't know what the fucking specific season was, but there was a season or like episode where it was a different director and it was a different writer, and it was like, well, I guess some of the episodes that people say are like the battle of the bastards episode was like, I'm almost certain it was like a different director and a different writer for that specific episode, where some of the scenes of that shit was just fucking incredible in ways that show had not been up to that point, and maybe was like once or twice after. But there's certain, like a TV show is different because it can have different people involved that significantly alter the way you would feel about specific episodes. That I don't think a TV show is equivalent in this, because a show could just change so much from episode to episode.
Pull people out, you know.
Even recently, like Fallout, the Fallout show, I believe like the first 2 or 3 episodes were like the same guys, and then every episode after that was like different motherfuckers, and you could kind of tell, you kind of feel it, you know. Like the very beginning of that shit was pretty fucking strong, and then after that, it was still okay, but it kind of like floated around a little bit. But
yeah,
it did. Yeah.
That broke so many people.
Even watching a Mike Flanagan show all the way right up to the last episode would be very misleading, because his shows are great usually up to like the last episode.
Which one?
Well, I might be in the minority opinion, but I didn't like. I've not seen all of them, but of the 2, Bly Manor and Hill House, I did not like the last episode as much as the rest.
Midnight Mass, I think the last episode was nonsense.
I've heard that one's like the worst.
Ending,
Yeah,
but Hill House's ending, yeah, I agree.
Yeah,
Bly's ending I like. Hill House was, I understand why they did it, but they should have went with the proper ending. They should have like committed.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yes. Sweet liver and onions. I didn't like liver and onions before I was made to eat it, and I resented liver and onions afterwards. You can't improve someone's opinion of something by cramming it down their throat.
Yeah, but that's not what people are trying to do.
They
don't care about your
don't
opinion.
review video games and
That's like a false premise. Was it crammed down your throat when you reviewed it in the first place?
People aren't saying that you need to be like locked in a dungeon until you complete it. They're asking you to play it to the end to develop a more comprehensive understanding of the game. That's it.
They care about your accuracy more so than your opinion.
This is such a weird analogy. This is more like an analogy of like making a first-person shooter fan play a sports game, or making a strategy game fan play an RPG or whatever. That'd be a more appropriate analogy. This is if you're going to actually provide a complete analysis and review of this game, you should probably have a pretty good idea what the entire game plays like.
There's so many simple aspects to it. Just when you say any broad statements about the mechanics or the soundtrack or the levels or the enemies or the combat, and you've not actually consumed all of those things from the thing, people start getting a bit weird about it. Like,
yeah, but those things rarely change, though. That's the thing. It rarely changes between. I feel like their opinion of this, their idea of what's happening, is someone's playing like 30 minutes of a game and then claiming they know everything about it. But you can absolutely play like 80%. The fucking combat is not gonna change in a significant way. Maybe you get like a new ability, like fucking like Majora's Mask. I've got the Fierce Deity Mask. That doesn't change fucking anything. It's like the final reward for like if you fucking 100% that game, you get the Fierce Deity Mask, which you can only use in very specific and very limited occasions. But if someone didn't unlock that, they're not missing anything. Their review is not less. I don't even care if you didn't even mention it in a review, because it's that insignificant. It changes so little of what that game is that it doesn't fucking matter. It really doesn't matter. Like the soundtrack is not gonna change significantly in the last fucking mile. The combat's not gonna change significantly in the last fucking mile. The writing is not gonna change significantly in the last fucking mile. Like you can absolutely play enough to where you have a clear understanding of what this game is offering, and you do not have to finish that last fucking mile. But I don't think they see it I don't think they're seeing it like from that perspective. They're looking at it as if you only play like an hour of the shit and you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about.
And I guess because I thought I had guessed right, but no, what I thought the point was going to be was the more that somebody plays the game, the more likely it is that they're going to understand the mechanics so well that they might start noticing flaws that would otherwise pass by somebody who's not as familiar with the mechanics, you know?
Which doesn't need to be a problem, of course.
Well, I mean, I think everybody would generally consider it to be a good thing because it's based on a more comprehensive understanding of the game. But it seems the point is no, if they had to play it longer than they wanted to, their bias would start to seep into the point that it would infect the review, which is a weird point to make, that you're so compromised in terms of your bias. It would be impossible for you to be accurate anymore.
I think it's nuts that the counter argument is, yeah, well, I'll become so biased against it, I'll give it an even worse review. Like my whole issue with you so far was how you're too biased.
That's not what they're saying. That's not what they're saying.
Yeah, you fucked up. This is worse for you, not me.
Part of the big...
I'm just madder at you now.
They're not saying they're going to give it a worse review. They're saying, well, my opinion is just not going to change. Or whatever is left of this that I didn't play, it's not gonna give me a better. It's not gonna maybe give it a better review. Would you rather I still give it a 7 and have finished it, or give it a 7 and have played only like 80 to 90%? Either way, it's a fucking 7, and you're gonna complain either fucking way. So you're just not gonna have this bullet of you're just gonna find something else.
We should be trying for some level of objectivity, not you just being a bitter asshole.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, then someone just points out a simple mistake. They say, "Oh, you said this was this, and it's actually this." It's like, F you. Next time,
like again, they wouldn't say. No one would have this argument if the review was if it was a positive review. No one would give a fuck, because their whole thing they're basing this off of is, oh, I'm being tortured to play this game that I hate, and I'm gonna give it a bad score because I hate it, and out of spite they're forcing me to play this, and I'm gonna give it an even worse review if I finish it. But if it was a positive review, they wouldn't give any fucks. I mean, this video wouldn't even be made because no one would be complaining. All of the variables could stay the same in this, aside from you change a 7 to a 9. You still didn't finish the game, but you gave it a 9 instead of a 7. No one would say fuck all. They would say fuck all, dude. No one would give a fuck. But because it's a 7, oh, now you didn't play enough. You didn't play enough. You have to finish it. It's like such bullshit, dude. I hate this like double standard.
I'm gonna say even stupider shit just to annoy you. Like, okay.
And like, if you're really just falling off a game that hard, you can still.
Which is that what I just said is the whole premise of this video. That's the core point. That they're just like not engaging with at all.
By making them sit at the table all night and finish
that they're only talking shit about the review is because they don't like the review, because it's a negative. In their eyes, it's a negative review, where a 7 is a perfectly valid score. In reality, it's a fucking 7.
Backward ass logic is this: when you're like, you don't want me to give it a more thorough review because it would be more negative.
Yeah,
it's like I would want to hear about that.
Good.
Yeah, I don't give a fuck if it's more negative, if it's more accurate.
Exactly.
But not necessarily. Surely there's got to be some instance where playing it more would improve your experience. I mean, come on.
Because you come to understand what you were doing wrong, for an example.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's the same reason why if you know, it's not quite the same because non-interactive, but you watch a film twice, sometimes you can benefit greatly from that experience.
And we've,
you know, when it comes to really good films.
A lot of people soured on Endgame on their second watch. That's a
I feel like I feel like you don't really know a film until you rewatch it. That's when you take your emotions out of it and get the truth. And the fact that this guy is like
now they're pivoting to now they're saying, oh, you have to like the movie thing. Oh no, you don't fully understand the movie until you watch it twice. Okay, play any review that comes out, they have to play the fucking game twice. Like what changes? What really changes aside from maybe if there's some nuance in the story beats that you didn't catch the first time? Maybe again, I feel like it wouldn't significantly change a review. If anything, again, you play it more. And one of the things they brought up is maybe you play it more and you understand some of the flaws, and again, you would give it a worse review, which is the whole argument that Sterling is making. That if you played more of it, you would give it a lesser score, regardless of the reasons. It doesn't matter what reason it is. If you play it more, you're probably going to give it a worse score or equal. Rarely you would score it higher the more you play it. Okay.
Appealing to this thought process for video games is crazy to me.
Well, you're not even finishing it the first time around.
That's what I'm saying.
For an easy games example, Dark Souls 1. I've seen, this is anecdotal, but I've seen both myself and so many people on their first time through that game get to the bell gargoyles, get just rinsed over and over again for hours and hate the game. They hate it. Then they beat it and they love it.
Yeah.
Like, something starts to click after they are good enough to beat that boss, and suddenly they're in love with the game.
Well, it happens sometimes that you can play a game for a very long time and just be completely out of sync with it. Yeah. You just don't get it. You aren't in rhythm with what is the most optimal experience with that game. And then the longer you play it, you just start like, oh shit, okay, yeah, now I get it. You know, that happens.
Things start to click.
You're robbing yourself of those potential eureka moments with a game.
And then you're freaks like me.
Well, yeah, it's so funny, right?
Again, at what point is that supposed to happen? Are we talking like you play like half the game? Or are we talking like 80-90%? Because yeah, sure, this guy brought up like bell gargoyles. That's the beginning of the fucking, isn't that like the second boss in Dark Souls? Like, come on, you're not writing a review at that point. You're not forming you're not basing that amount of gameplay on a review in any capacity. Like, I feel like they're taking like some extreme fucking examples here and claiming that someone would be writing a review based on that shit. Maybe like a Steam review, but in Steam reviews you can absolutely see how much that motherfucker played. It tells you how much they played. It tells you how much they played total and how much they played in like the last 2 weeks or something. It gives you very good information on that. So if someone did write that kind of review on Steam, you would see that shit. But from like a major publication, like you're not doing that. And if they did do that, you would be able to tell. You would know.
Or okay.
If you suggested that could happen, that could happen. You could enjoy the game. That's insane.
Possible.
Why would you ever say that? I'm just gonna hate it. You're like, oh.
Yeah, you have a better understanding of it and like understand why you like the things that you like, why they work, why they don't work. And it's such a narrow-minded like point of view. I don't get it.
This is such a weird take too. Like, is this kind of take the idea that reviews need to be positive to talk about, like the idea that we must praise Zelda game because it's a Zelda game? Like, it almost sounds like
here is that Sterling is very heavily invested in the conversation around it, and particularly, I guess, Nintendo fanboys specifically getting mad about the review, that it's so mired in that it's almost impossible to move past that to get to the fundamental conversation, which is, do you need to complete a game to review it properly? You know, why should you do that? What are the arguments against it? It's just too mired in the matter.
What benefit is there to not completing a game unless you're specifically trying to just describe your first impression?
Well, if you're a reviewer, not much. If you're me and it's a terrible game, many. But for a reviewer, I don't see how ever finishing a game is going to be worse than not finishing it.
Yeah, this argument about like how backward this is.
More context.
You just have to accept this argument of, if you were already not liking it, you are going to like it less. But then again, that assumes that the point of playing it more is to necessarily have a positive review of a game rather than a better review of a game.
Exactly.
Maybe the element here is because we've talked about this in the cinema aspect with what the duty is of a reviewer and what a good review is. When we go to the video game side, if we were to ask Jim Sterling, what do you think is the duty of a good video game reviewer? What should they strive to do, and what makes a video game review a good one as opposed to a bad one?
So, I said this in the beginning, I'll say this again. The purpose of a review should be to assist the consumer on making a purchase decision. And the content of the review should serve that purpose without any critical factual errors. That is what a review should do. If it does that and you didn't finish the game, that's a fine review. That review is okay because it serves its purpose. People can make a purchasing decision without your review containing any factual errors. That's totally fine.
And maybe Jim Sterling is operating on a completely different goal or mindset of what a video game reviewer needs to be doing.
Well, something that maybe these types of journalists who are trying to cover more or less every major release, rather than doing the thing that
if they went to video, they need to go to some more video game festivals.
Oh, what I mean is that because IGN for instance would feel compelled to cover every single game. No, obviously it's not every single journalist individually is going to do it, but in the case of does Sterling review a lot of games in a year? Or only 5 or 6 in a year? Because if there's that pressure as well of you want to be making sure that you're doing reviews for every major release, that just limits the amount of time that you have available.
And the passion, you're going to have interest in each of them.
That's true. Are you going to be particularly interested in every major release that comes out?
Oversaturation.
Exactly. So if there's that too.
Again, how is this any different than other major publications who cover way more fucking video games than Sterling does? Granted, they have teams of people doing this, but they're still under the same constraints that anyone else would be under a review embargo. They still have to get their review up within a specific time frame. They're still under these time constraints. And even with the team, you're still reviewing mini games. So I don't see this point.
And I just want to touch on what Reg said, the requirement for a reviewer. If let's say it was a list of 3 to 5 things, don't you think finishing the game would be on it? That's just such a base requirement.
Well, and the sort of empathy I can give is when you deal with a game that's enormous, and it's what does it mean to complete it? It's I understand that, okay. I understand. But as you can see, as evidenced on the screen right now, one thing I know the controversy surrounding this whole review had was that is a low amount of hearts, is it not, for a Zelda game? Gonna have to ask my Zelda experts here, metal.
Sorry, I just tuned out for.
If you ask me, I'm Link to the Past Zelda.
I was about to say
I'm 20.
Yeah, I think you can get
you gotta get all 20.
I think you can get into 2 rows
with your eggs.
Well, that was something that Sterling got picked up for, basically, as controversy on the review, is that there's a shit amount.
Okay, this is bullshit. This is a bullshit take. Because look at his fucking stamina meter. In this game, you can choose between hearts and stamina. Clearly, Sterling chose fucking stamina here. Just look at the fucking screen, guys. Look at how much stamina he has. He has so much fucking stamina. None of you guys played this game? None of you played this game. None of you. I don't understand. Look at his hearts. Also, fucking, he could just be choosing footage to show that is not late game spoiler footage. This is such a shitty point. This is such a dog shit point to bring up.
Out of hearts in all the footage, meaning
Yeah, you can't. You wouldn't even be able to get the Master Sword with these amounts of hearts.
It just tells you how much you played the game, doesn't it?
Yeah, because you need to do a bunch of what do you call the shrines.
That's right.
A lot of them, and then you get all the parts for that. And it's the thing. Tears of the Kingdom has a lot of shrines. Some of them are pretty good, and some of them are fine because they vastly improved those shrines. I think over Breath of the Wild.
Anyway.
Take Warhammer 40,000 Bolt Gun, for example. It's a very good game. I gave it a 7.5 and its fans didn't bitch about it. Like the similarly scored, but not quite as good as Tears of the Kingdom, I had a lot of nice things to say about it, but a lot of complaints as well. Chief among them, the fact that its limited weapon and enemy variety meant the game ran out of content long before it ran out of levels to put them in. Bolt Gun starts off hilarious and exciting, an incredibly fun pairing of the ludicrous 40k and the over-the-top 90s style shooter. There's a button dedicated to yelling fanatical threats, a press F to show contempt button.
You'd like that.
Perfect.
Go on.
But over the course of hours and hours,
I was about to say the argument has been made yet. We're waiting. It'll be here in a second now.
Hey, all right,
repetitive gameplay, while never diminishing in quality, grew more and more exhausting. The further I got into it, the more tired I became, the more its little minor flaws began to bug me, and the lower my opinion sank. For me,
But see, that's fine. If you,
that's
if
fine.
you play it for an hour and you're settling on a 10 out of 10, then you play it for 3 hours and you're like, actually, I'm over 9. Then you play it for 10 hours and you're like, this is kind of a 6. That's fine.
But that's the whole point. That's the whole point they're making, is that rarely playing a game to completion is going to increase your score. It's only going to diminish. Like most motherfuckers, like start at a 10. I would, or you know, they start pretty high, and it only lowers the more you go. Or you know, you play a significant amount, and you feel like you've gotten your fill of a game, but there's more after that, and you're like, I'm enjoying this, but there's still more. It's kind of overstaying its welcome, and that's where it gets. That's where the problem is. That's the problem area. Now I will defend these guys a little bit. That is a reason. That is a valid reason to finish a game. Is that there is shit at the end that will diminish the enjoyment, and if you don't experience that, I think it's fine that you don't, but you do get a little bit more context that, hey, maybe, but again, it's only going to lower your score. There's no world where that last mile is going to like increase the score. So again, the point is not that you're giving it a lower score out of spite, is that you've gotten a little bit more context in the whole, and it's going to lower the score, and then that's just going to upset people even more. Like, no one's upset because you didn't finish the game. They're upset because you gave it a low score to begin with. Okay.
I'd call that important information.
Yeah,
for the
new
longevity of the mechanics.
New information creates new opinions. Like it's this guy's insane.
That's the whole point.
You can describe stuff in review. You don't have to give the entire review, like how you felt at the end of the game. A lot of games don't really hold up through the end. Sometimes the ending makes the game even better, but a lot of times it's kind of falls off a little bit. Maybe the last boss wasn't great, or maybe the last bit kind of seems repetitive. Great example. I'm kind of, again, a minority opinion on this one, but Alone in the Dark 2008 has like an episodic TV show format. It's got a lot of flaws. Not the best game in the world, but for the most part, it has a pretty good pacing until the last act of the game, where for no reason whatsoever, you have to search the entire like GTA style open world area and burn down like 30 evil routes for no reason before you can get to the last act of the game. And it's like the biggest slog of the game. But had you not played up to that point, not reviewed that point, you probably would have gotten a different experience had you, because you don't.
That is the whole point. That is the whole point of Sterling's video. This is the whole point of what Sterling is saying. This is the whole point. That typically you play through the end and the score goes down. That's what they're saying. I like how now that point has been exemplified, they've all turned, oh yeah, well, you know, it's, yeah, of course. I mean, you play a game and yeah, sometimes it doesn't hold up to the end. Yeah, that's the whole point of Sterling's video.
I don't realize that's even in the game. That's like the last couple hours of the game.
You don't get a full experience.
And I can't imagine looking at a review and someone says like my enjoyment factor was lowering the more I played it, and me going like, well, then you shouldn't have fucking played more of it, should you? And then your review
Job
would
is
have
to
been
put out
better.
a positive review. Don't you know that's your job?
That's
To be
the thing.
positive.
The
a funding
player is just going to
contract.
go, huh? So this is just going to like sour quite quickly. Then,
So-
right?
It's so
I think
funny
the video
because
is
you just
way too.
I think that's what
loaded
it is.
with the view that the you know, whoever's getting mad at Sterling over the review is necessarily saying, well, you should have played it more because then you would have thought it was better. That seems to be baked into every single argument that's being made.
I think that's what it is. Like, what's the best possible way to get a good review of the game? And like, if you're taking an approach that's going to give you, potentially a negative review, I don't want you to get that. I think it's as simple as that.
Self-own of the Zelda fans.
Mm.
Yeah, if we ignore like the frothing idiots online, you have to assume that these people who are saying you didn't play much of it, implicitly what they're pointing to there is you were inaccurate about something because of your lack of familiarity.
Okay, but they're not saying that though. I understand if that's the point, if that's the actual point they were trying to make, that hey, you got shit wrong and it's because you didn't play enough. If that's the point, then they should say that, but that's not what's being said. That's not what's being said. This is not what's being said. What's being said is you gave this game a 7 and you didn't finish it. So you have to finish it, and then you'll see that it's actually a fucking 10. Is what is actually being said.
And you wouldn't have been if you had played more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a kind of a weird thing I've been noticing.
Because again, the perfect example is Elden Ring, a game where many reviewers did not finish the fucking game. Yet many reviewers gave it 10 out of 10s. And nowhere did anyone come out and go like, you actually didn't finish the game, so you can't possibly say it's a 10 out of 10. Or you didn't finish the game, so there's factual inaccuracies in this review because you didn't finish the game. Like, no one said shit when it's a positive review. But when it's a negative review, or it's perceived as a negative review, they're like, oh, you didn't finish that fucking game. You better get back in there and give it a 9 or 10.
Well, especially with bigger reviewers, like has anybody been following, vaguely related, but has anybody been following the Linus Tech Tips drama recently?
Somewhat.
Yeah, somewhat.
Like one of the things that came up, like Gamers Nexus did like a whole expose of all these inaccuracies and kind of like biases, like where they would review things that they were sponsored by.
Okay, this video must be old because that was a while ago. I think one recent example of a review's gone awry is Marcus Brownlee did the Humane AI pen review and said it was the worst product he's ever reviewed. And then people came out and was like, well, you can't say that, it's gonna ruin this company. But again, if you go back to my premise of what a review should be, it should assist consumers in making a purchasing decision. Who gives a fuck about the company? Fuck the company. They're charging you $700 for this product and it's a piece of shit. And I'm going to tell you it's a piece of shit. That's my job as a reviewer. My job is not to protect the company. It's to protect you, the consumer, who's going to get tricked into buying this piece of shit and fucking get scammed and out of their money. So this video is probably a little older. So they're talking about the Linus stuff, but the Humane stuff is a little bit more recent, and I think is a little bit more relevant.
Higher, and they like took a prototype, a very expensive prototype, auctioned it by accident, and they didn't get it back, and a bunch of other stuff, and just like continually misrepresenting stats and performance of various different bits of hardware, which thousands, if not millions, of people have been influenced by their reviews of video cards and gaming hardware and all this kind of stuff, right? Anyway, one of the things that they kind of said, I think Linus said this in his kind of knee-jerk response, was that how he needs to kind of read the room while he's doing reviews to kind of like review it properly. And that's such a weird aspect. It's like, why would hardware performance and your estimation and analyzation of that matter at all what other people think? Like, if anything, you should practically be isolated from other people's opinions because maybe everybody else is getting it wrong. Maybe everybody else has got a sponsorship or isn't testing it properly. If you're actually properly reviewing a graphics card and getting, FPS on high, on medium and low, that should be pretty objective, and it shouldn't matter if everybody else loves it or hates it. You should be able to independently verify what the quality of a thing.
Yeah.
And
Great.
You've highlighted a time where it's super important because this comes down to like people buying products that are designed to function. Like that is the primary purpose. At least with entertainment, there's an angle that even if it's shit, you might still like it or whatever. But we still have examples in history of how these things matter. As far as I'm concerned, like I don't have as many of the details anymore. But as far as I'm aware, Total Biscuit's the reason Dark Souls made it to PC, which was always like a huge achievement because people fucking adore Dark Souls. It was huge, and so is From Software on PC now. And likewise, the only big significant breakdown of Soma that was on the internet when it came out was Joseph Anderson's, and he fucking had no idea what he was dealing with when he played the game. And there was so many people in the comments being like, "Oof, good thing I can dodge this one." Like, "Oh, that would have been bad." Like, "Oh god, this is I did get it."
Oh, that sucks.
No.
Well,
That sucks.
The money he cost frictional.
And that's the thing. It was done with inaccuracy and clumsiness. It's weird because he's not usually like that. Like he pissed everybody off with his Mario Odyssey review. Right?
I'm gonna check out that Soma review. I haven't seen that, but I'll check that out. I'll see what that's about. Yeah, if he put up a Soma review that was filled with inaccuracies, then that's the problem. But recognize that as a problem, because you can't just say you didn't play enough. Like if it was totally accurate, no one would have an issue, regardless of how much he played. If he put up a review that was totally accurate, no one would have a problem. The problem isn't you're I think they're mislabeling what the actual issue they have is. It's like not how much they played the game, it's the inaccuracies that can come from not playing enough of the game. But you can totally write a factual review and not have finished the game. You can totally do that. The problem is not how much they played, the problem is the inaccuracies. So label that as the issue. Like that is the issue.
Right, and didn't he get all of the, what are they called, moons or something?
Yes,
something like that.
I think he collected every single one.
Yeah, and that's commendable to me, the fact that you would do hyper completionist, and then I feel like you have a strong standing for what your opinion might be, even if I completely disagree with it. But like Soma, I don't even think he played through it more than once when it's a game filled with choices, which is an interesting thing to do when you want to do like a definitive review of it, because he just found it so unpleasant, I guess.
The choices in that game don't matter. The choices in that game, that's a perfect game. Soma's a perfect game that does choice because it makes you think that the choices matter, but in reality, they only matter in your like psyche. Psychologically, they matter because you're making psychologically based choices, but in reality, they don't matter the fuck at all. But it's a good example of choices matter like in your head, because in reality they don't matter. All the choices don't matter in terms of the game itself, but in terms of you as a person and how it makes you feel, you kind of feel icky at some of the choices that it makes you make. But it doesn't go any further than that. It just makes you kind of make a choice and you deal with it internally. It's actually really effective at that. But the choices don't matter. Though if you play it twice, you would know that. But you don't have to play it twice to like that. That like knowing that kind of devalues that game a little bit, because you just know that, well, the choices don't actually matter. But it's about how it makes you feel.
But in any case, this is the motive behind a lot of people, and to just dismiss them as the crazies who will get a worse review if they keep complaining is so fucking bitter.
Yeah, it's just funny to me. Just talking about this now, just thinking back to the Resident Evil 4 coverage we did, and just playing through the game like 4 times.
Yeah,
everybody was like, oh, and then even putting little challenges out there that have nothing to do with the game, but just see what's going on. And what Well, I was doing this. It was like in what was it? Oh, in the beginning when you wanted to kill both Salvadors on professional or super professional, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And you just have to do it over and over again because you really want to do it, and then realize, oh, when I shoot this one zombie man over there, there's like 15 different things that can happen every time.
No, dude, we learned so much about the mechanics of that game by setting ourselves difficult challenges because you have to rely on mechanics, and therefore it's like, how do I get him to reliably stagger? And then you're like, well, you can't unless you do, this many shots in this place with this gun at this time, and it's like, oh, okay. And then you actually get a whole map of the mechanics in your head. And if someone said like, yeah, but that made you hate the game more, right? And like, it may have
you learn the game more.
Well, it may have made me give it a lower review than I had before I figured out how everything works, but I don't see how that's a bad thing.
Honest.
Because good information you have and put in your review.
And it just gives replay value.
If the idea of a reviewer is to have the general gaming population be more almost blissful in their ignorance for the real quality of a game and its mechanics, I don't know if I'm gonna go along with that.
It's almost like a mildly abusive relationship where you're like, okay, if you demand that I will play more of this game, I'm going to not acknowledge this game as being as highly rated as you want me to rate it as. It's like, what is even your purpose at that point? If you're treating it as like, how dare you ask me to play more of this game? I'll rate it lower because I will not like it as much the more I play it.
It's not what they're saying.
Like, what do you
literally just saw the part.
What your purpose is?
Explain what they're saying, and now you're ignoring it.
I mean, that's what Mala sometimes puts us up to. It's like, hey, you all play Gollum and stream it. And it's like, fuck, why? And then it's just a really good time overall, even though the game is piss. But it's just good things. Like even if you let's say your content brand's like, oh man, I can make so much content out of this while playing the game and figuring stuff out, and then make a review on top. Well, that's crazy. And then you guys made this whole supercut out of it that people were enjoying, and then we cover it here on EFAP. It's like, I don't know, we all had a pretty good understanding of the game, I think. So I just see positives in playing the game to the fullest at least once. I don't know.
No negative to that at all.
Familiarity, as this game would appreciate, breeds contempt. And while I still like Bolt Gun, I honestly wish it were a few hours shorter so it didn't outstay its welcome.
Thanks for the Bolt Gun review, I guess.
Okay.
Redfall is a more extreme but perhaps better showcase of how demanding reviewers spend more time with a game doesn't serve that game's interests. My first few hours with
Redfall cares about the game's interests. It's the consumer's interests.
Yep.
How can it not
Seriously,
serve the game's interest, though?
He thinks reviewers' job is to praise games, not actually review them. I think that's it. That's pretty much it.
That's not what he was saying.
It serves a game's interest because it means that it would be easier for developers to make good patches and balances to a game if they get the most comprehensive information possible on what is working and what isn't working. So, I mean, yeah, you could even make an argument that it isn't a game's interest to get these types of reviews because then they know what to fix. They know how to make a better sequel.
Yeah, see this happen a lot with patched games like Darkest Dungeon 2. 1 even. Those games went through a lot of iterations based on high-profile community feedback.
That game kicked my ass.
Most people don't remember that, but there was a period where people hated Darkest Dungeon because they added in corpses and a couple other mechanics that people weren't really on board with. It wasn't until like a lot of feedback that they finally removed corpses, or they didn't remove them. They made it optional.
Corpses are still there.
You can make it optional.
They still suck.
Yeah, you can turn them off if you want to. Which
Are you sure?
Yeah, they added it as optional, I believe.
But there's powers that people have to like get rid of corpses. What would be the point of those powers?
You mean in 1 or 2?
You have the option.
In 1, in 2, I think they're mandatory. They didn't add it as. But 2 is like almost a completely different game at that point. But yeah, in 1, they were introduced and people were really mad. There was actually, I think, a period when it went into the negatives in Steam reviews, and then they made a couple different things optional. They also added like a less punishing mode and everything radiant mode or whatever it was, and that's back up to 9 out of 10. So
I'm gonna be like, I guess throw a wrench in the conversation and say I think people were wrong to be mad about corpses, though. I think they're a very important part of the game and make it function, and what makes it function.
I don't mind corpses, but I'm losing my mind with that sanity shit. Can't manage it.
That's the whole
Another
game.
really important part.
I know, I like it. No, I wasn't dissing it. I was saying I suck. That game whooped my ass. I'll get back to it though.
God, I remember Darkest Dungeon 1. I think I named them after people in chat, and I think
They
I
all
called
died.
one. I named one Mauler, and I think I had 6 Maulers in that game.
I remember the
I had
movie.
2 Fringies actually, the Plague Doctor.
I put 600 hours in that game. It's fantastic.
What about the second one?
The second one is pretty good.
I didn't hate it. I felt it was a bland, mediocre, minimum viable product of a game, but it was relatively inoffensive to me. After playing it a little while, I came away thinking it was dull but more or less serviceable. Then I kept playing. I kept playing until I found out how f***ing repetitive it was.
Yeah, but imagine if you hadn't.
If it was really good when you kept playing
Imagine
it.
if you hadn't, though.
Yeah.
I feel like isn't that even a worse point, though, that you realize, oh, if I had stopped, I might have given a downright misleading.
This goes both directions. It's like, are you happy that you give misleading reviews because you don't know how familiar you would be with games?
Yeah, isn't this a great reason why you should play games longer? Holy shit!
This is what I mean. This video just completely f***s itself.
Yeah.
You should be
There's no
thankful
thought
that I have no
process.
integrity. You're like,
Again, I think they're coming at this from the point of view that you've played so little of the game that you have no idea what you're actually talking about. But that's not. And the point of Redfall, people don't. I don't know how many people actually know this, but there are 2 fucking maps in Redfall. Okay. I don't know if most people even know that. Because I played to the second map, and I know Angry Joe played this game to fucking full completion. But I stopped on the second map. Once you get to the second map, I'm like, dude, fuck this. You have to do everything you did in that first fucking map, which is like a sizable chunk of this fucking game. Like you play through this game thinking it's just one map, and you kill like the boss, and you're like, oh, finally I've done it. And then that second map opens up, and it's so demoralizing. It is so like, fuck this shit. There's a whole nother separate map that I have to clear. You're like, oh, fuck this. Like that's the turning point. But that's half the game. That is 50% of that game. And the first 50% is already miserable. And then when you find that out, it only drops that game. Like what does it matter? The game is fucking garbage regardless. It's trash regardless. Once you hit the halfway point, what are you like? What? It's like double garbage now? I mean, you're not, it's not a major like revelation. It's not that significant. Overall, the game's still shit. What, you're gonna give it like instead of a 5, you're gonna give it like a 3 now or some shit? Like, I don't know. Still fucking shit. You still shouldn't buy it. It's still trash. Ultimately, the review doesn't change. Actually, the gameplay doesn't change. Nothing about the game changes other than everything you did, everything you thought that you were leading up to an end is actually only half the game. That's the major revelation. It's like, oh, this is only half the game. I have to do all that shit again. Fuck this game. That's I don't know. They think they're coming off as if they're thinking you only play like a few hours of this game. You have no idea what it is. But Redfall is the same game before that point. It's the same game after that point, except from it's like significantly worse now because you have to do double the shit that you just did, and it was trash then, and it's still trash. But none of the core shit changes. You can write that review before you get to that point, and it's not going to change after you get to that point, other than, oh, by the way, you have to do it again.
Okay.
No, wait,
All
no,
right.
I kept playing
think
until I
Jim
found out
should review games and not play any of them and give everything 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
That way, the 10 out of 10 scores
Everyone's
are
happy.
protected, preserved forever.
No one will.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I would love to see how a review is received. Like, say, let's just take Elden Ring again. Say someone gave Elden Ring a 10 out of 10, and they wrote a review not having actually played the game. I would be curious to see how that review was received. If anyone actually, someone would call it out, but if they wrote a review based on what they thought the game was without having played it and gave it a 10 out of 10, I would love to see how that is received. Just out of curiosity.
And that way you can put out 1,000 reviews a day, and
because that's the actual point. The actual point is no one gives a fuck if it's a positive review. If they agree with the review, no one gives a fuck how long you played it, because they agree with you just straight up. The whole point is they disagree with you, and the ammunition they have is that, oh, you didn't finish the game, and that's why we hate this review.
The fanboy's happy. It's like, yes, you gave it 10 out of 10. I agree.
Right.
And then anybody who disagrees, it's like, well, what do you want? I didn't play it. I don't know.
I don't know what I'm talking
Or
about.
just actually play and review 10 games and then just change the visuals every single time a new game comes out of any of those reviews. And nobody will notice.
Yeah.
Not be much difference. And the fans will be happy. Everyone's happy now.
We did it. We solved racism.
And yeah, someone's just made me aware back in the day. I know we've talked about this in the previous years, but the newest Sacrifice, right? Hellblade, Sterling gave that game a 1 out of 10.
Oh,
There's a bug.
There was a game-breaking bug in it, and that's why.
I remember when Prey got a 4 out of 10 because of a very rare save game bug, and IGN got pissed.
Yeah,
that happens.
The fact of the matter is, when you're right, you're right.
Which is totally
and
valid.
You ensure that you won't be wrong. You know?
Mm-hmm.
A right statement, regardless of how much you've played or how little you've played, is still a correct statement.
Uh-oh. You're going to drift into the world of Jim Stilling's perspective on everything I say in my review is correct because it's all subjective, babe.
Oh, boy.
Sounds like
I agree that it's subjective, but, that doesn't make that true.
Well, there's a lot of things you could say about video games. Well, and anything that is like, oh, you can't just say that's subjective. You can't.
Yeah, as if that somehow matters to the things that I've said that are attacking your argument. I hate it, man.
This is why I wish they would just separate it, and so we'd have an understanding of what they're talking about. Because this person is just rambling. There's no thought process. The things here that they're contradicting themselves with, you'd catch that in a script normally. But this just seems to be completely just how they feel about it. There's no actual research or anything done here. Did they even elaborate on other positions, at the beginning, the parts that you skipped?
Wait, what's in the skipped section is mainly responding to comments that are taken out of comment sections that are insane, you know?
Did they explore the other perspectives though? Like why you shouldn't actually, why you don't benefit from them reviewing?
Let's put it this way, this is the best faith section of the video.
Oh boy.
Wow. Okay.
Wow. I came away thinking it was dull, but more or less serviceable. Then I kept playing. I kept playing until I found out how f***ing repetitive it was. I kept playing until I found out it had nothing under the surface beyond the most bargain basic game.
You have nothing under the surface.
Your review is
but they didn't even say how much that was. They didn't. Sterling still didn't say they finished the Redfall, which I'm sure they didn't. I'm sure Sterling did not finish Redfall. You can have that opinion. I like how they all agree with this opinion. I kept playing and it's fucking still trash. And they all agree with that. They're like, yeah, see, you kept playing. You didn't finish it, though. I'm sure you didn't finish it. Your opinion is still completely valid. You're not saying anything wrong. You're not saying anything wrong. And I'm sure you didn't finish this fucking game. And no one's going to argue that.
Hear it. That's neat.
You did it. High five.
I kept playing.
Their whole point is that you have to finish the game to make that claim. But nowhere did Sterling say, I finished Redfall. They just said they kept playing. They kept playing, which could be another 3 hours. Doesn't take long to come to this conclusion, guys.
Found its embarrassing enemy AI and laundry list of bugs. I kept playing until this inoffensive
This is
game
your
had
job.
That's your job. I was about to say that. That's what you're supposed to do, man.
At this point,
how
it's
you get your money.
I did
Find
a health
those
inspection for a restaurant. It was fine. Then I started checking the freezers, and I found dead rats in all the freezers. I wouldn't have found them if you guys not complained. It's like, okay.
God.
exposed its weaknesses to such a degree, I felt downright insulted by the thing. What started as Redfall is okay, I guess, became, with time, Redfall is Shit.
What's the problem?
So this is good.
The problem is, see, Nintendo fanboys, you don't want me to review Zelda more comprehensively. You don't want
Because
that.
then the number
Otherwise,
out of 10
Zelda
will go
would be
downer.
like Redfall. That's right. The number would be lower, and that's you don't want that, do you?
You don't want that. You want number to be bigger.
So in this weird twisted, kind of.
This is off topic. This is very off topic, but I'm looking at this screenshot. I'm noticing that these poles here, these power line poles, you know, they have the little fucking handholds and the footholds. I used to live in Jersey. I would see these all the time. Not in Colorado. I don't see this anywhere. I'm wondering if that's just an East Coast thing. I've completely forgotten about that. You see that all the time on the East Coast, and I think Redfall is set on like Maryland, right? I think this must be some East Coast shit. Because now I live in Colorado, I don't see these power poles with the little handholds like people can climb it. I don't see that out here. At least I haven't noticed it, if there is. But I feel like I've not seen that at all out here. There's a little tangent. I got nostalgic for a second looking at that. I'm like, huh. I don't see that anymore. Okay.
Bigger.
So in this weird twisted kind of viewpoint, you basically play good games less and bad games more to even out the score. That's basically what's being said, right?
It's more of a. There's been
no,
many
it's not
attempts
what's being
over the
said.
years for Jim Sterling to shut up people who say mean things, and this is the newest strategy, and I've just found it absolutely baffling. Like, you don't want me to be more honest and thorough because you wouldn't like the results. It's like a threat.
And also, isn't this like a really bad thing to put out there, that publisher that potentially less than up and up publishers and developers might think like, hey, if we front load all of our content, doesn't matter after the first couple hours because the reviewers won't even play it. That's
True. He's saying that snarkily, but that's fucking true. Best recent case is Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 had an extremely polished first 2 acts. You get to Act 3, that shit falls the fuck apart. They've been patching Act 3 since that game launched. It's like, I think it's in a good place now, but motherfuckers reviewed that game based on those first 2 acts, which takes a very long time. Once you get to Act 3, that's where it falls the fuck apart. But not many people know that shit because the reason Act 1 and 2 are so polished is because that was the early access period. They've had many years to work on Act 1 and Act 2, and when the game launched, it launched with Act 3, which no one had gotten to yet. So when you got to Act 3, it was so drastically unpolished compared to those first 2 acts. But not many people know that. What he's saying is unironically true. But he's saying it, he doesn't know. He just doesn't know that's true.
Less than up and up publishers and developers might think like, hey, if we front load all of our content, doesn't matter after the first couple hours because the reviewers won't even play it. That's a really bad precedent to set. I think.
It is.
I just can't
it's
get over
true.
the fact that we've basically just had Sterling admit that I could have reviewed a game positively that was bad, and that's better. Just like, why is that better?
I thought that the most important thing, surely, would be accuracy. Surely.
Exactly. That's what you're there
all
for.
the time.
Accuracy, integrity, honesty. That's the thing, like a trifecta that people will absolutely love about videos, whether or not they agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's an asylum somewhere full of people who have been broken by Jim's low scores of their favorite games. It's like,
Well,
I wish
this all
if only he didn't play them.
With Breath of the Wild, because that was given a 7, right? Or 6, 7 or 6, something like that. And the same thing happened again, and it pisses everybody off.
Which, you know, like, it's something that's worth. There can definitely be when it comes to particularly hyped up video game releases where a small contingent of people get pretty rabid about anything like lower than absolutely glowing praise, and particularly get fixated on number scores.
Yeah.
People can get really fixated on whether a game gets like an 8, for instance, that an 8 is unacceptable because video game scores are so skewed.
Yeah, really mad at me about Elden Ring.
Yeah, like
The problem is people don't actually read the content of the review. They just look at the score and go, "Oh, it's a 7." and then base their opinion solely on this number, this arbitrary number that's been attached to it, without actually reading the actual content of the review. Which, you know, I don't, I've never liked that, but there's reasons that people want the number, so they put the number on it. That's all there is to it.
That exists for basically every
Everything.
game, and can we not let that ruin our ability to have real conversations?
You don't
know?
have to dignify these idiots with a response.
Yes,
Yeah,
but by doing
Certainly
this,
not this kind
I
of
mean,
response.
you have demonstrated yourself to be very big mad about this
Yeah.
topic.
Yeah, this is definitely an emotional response.
They're coming at this in a very disingenuous way, because they've taken everything Sterling said and like dismissed the actual points that they're making. They're not saying I'm reviewing this game. If I play more of this game I don't like, I'm going to give it a lower score out of spite. It's not what's being said here. It's that typically most games, they get worse the longer they go on. They overstay their welcome, or you just notice flaws that are starting to surface more the longer you play. They're not saying I'm going to give it a lower score out of spite. They're saying, I think it's this right now. If I keep going, it might get lower. Which is a valid, like, it's a valid thing to, if it's a valid thing to notice, or it's a valid thing to note. That's one criticism, that yeah, you should play more, so that if a game does have that flaw at the back half, you should be able to tell people that, hey, look, it doesn't hold up throughout the entire length. You should be able to tell people that. That's good information to have. But ultimately, nothing in that back half, I'm saying like the back like 20% really. Typically, most games don't change a significant amount in the back 20%. That is significant enough to note in a review. That's my take. Like, you play the first 80%, it's not going to change significantly. Definitely not for the positive in the back 20%. It's either going to stay the same or it's going to get worse.
This video.
There's definitely a fervor, especially about the Zelda games recently too. I remember Breath of the Wild. I mean, I enjoyed it. I had some problems with it too. Most people I know really enjoyed it. I'd probably say it's a good game for sure, but I didn't like it as much as most. But the kind of environment around the reviews were crazy. I remember Pro Jared. This is pre-Pro Jared controversy, so they had nothing to do with that. I remember he reviewed it and he said like a 10 out of 10. And he said, "Oh, there's a couple of nagging issues, but they're so minor and not even worth mentioning." And I shit you not, either the next day or the day before, he had a one-on-one interview with Reggie from Nintendo, and it was like an exclusive interview and everything like that. Okay, it's like, I really can't take your reviews seriously if you're that kind of cozy with the. Are you going to trash their game and then talk to Reggie? Hey, Reggie, I really respect your work and your games are great.
Immediately, like, there's a price to honesty, and that's just sort of like welcome to life. It's just one of those life things.
But it's a reviewer thing, though. Like, if you're a reviewer, that's a choice you have to make. Do you want to have honesty and integrity, or do you just try to get paid? Like, you have to make that choice eventually. And people like that, they just expose themselves.
It's difficult too, because if you see, let's say you really like The Witcher 3 and you got kind of cozy with CDPR and everything like that. Like I'm an affiliate of GOG, for example. If GOG did something really bad, I would feel a little sting of guilt criticizing them, but I probably would, because I count my honesty and my integrity more than a couple bucks of every once in a while from somebody clicking on an affiliate link. It's not that big of a deal. It doesn't end my life or my career if I criticize them. But I could see getting really cozy with CDPR, and then they drop Cyberpunk 2077, and they're like, ooh, what do I do now? Do I violate that relationship? It can really affect your opinion subconsciously or indirectly sometimes. And yeah, it's dangerous. It's really dangerous if you want to keep their objectivity. You have to kind of keep your distance. Keep even people you like at arm's length.
I've been party to some dumb attempts to discredit a negative review too. Final Fantasy XIII, one of my earliest reviews to send the community into hysterics, was discredited by some because I said I hadn't beaten the final boss. I'd gotten to that final area, I just did not want to bother playing that last tiny stretch because I had loathed everything up to that point, and it really didn't matter to me.
No, what are you good for then?
Well, I mean, then you kind of then people are
Why are you
criticizing
here?
Then I mean, it's just a job.
If that were in the video, you know what I mean? Like, as long as you didn't comment on it, then what did you do? Because it makes me think, like, what did you do? What did you say that pissed everybody off?
Yeah.
You played
What
the
was
whole
it
game,
that
you
you
didn't fight one
actually
boss.
did?
Did you
Yeah.
claim to have fight it? Did you claim that you did the whole thing?
Did you talk about the story and conclusively said it's bad, even though you didn't see the end of it because you just...
This is bullshit. Like the last fucking hour of the story is gonna. Oh my god, guys! I was hating this game, but I was hating this game for like the first 70 hours, but it really came together in that 71st hour. It really, you know what? It's a 10. I went from a 3 to a 10 in that last hour. Trust me, play through that first 99% is going to be terrible. But that last 1%, game of the year. Never has this been said. Never has this been said. Are they going to try to make the claim that, no, man, the end of the game, you hated it and you didn't play the end? You're going to say the story's bad and you didn't even fight, you didn't kill the final boss? You can't possibly think the story's bad. This is insane. This is insanity. This is insanity. I need examples. I need fucking examples. Anything. Give me a movie, a fucking TV show, an album where the last episode brings it from like a 0 to a fucking 10, where it's that significant to where it changes everything. Oh, it fucking changed everything, guys. I was hating this until the last 30 minutes where they really made me a believer. This is insane. This is insane.
Didn't do the rest of it all the way at the end.
You were right there, man.
You're right there, man.
Matter to Final Fantasy fans who delighted in what they perceived to be a silver bullet. Not one of them stopped to consider that if I hated the game after 50 hours, what on earth would make me turn around and love it after 51?
A better
More
understanding.
Maybe more experience, you cunts. Like, this is so simple.
I can't believe they're actually they're trying to. There's not one person on this panel. There's not one person on this panel that like disagrees with anyone. You've got how many people are on here? Like 8, 9. There's not one person that's like, well, no, there's no way that 1 hour is going to change anyone's mind. I don't believe this. Now they're just trying to hate. I can't believe you're going to defend this.
Maybe more experience, you cunts. Like, this is so simple.
If 1 hour doesn't make that much of a difference, then just do the hour. You're a game reviewer.
But this all assumes every single person that ever says anything is like, if you played it more, you'd like it. Maybe they just mean if you played it more, you'd be more accurate. That's all.
Yeah.
Imagine playing Bioshock Infinite and then skipping the ending and then commenting on the story. The ending would absolutely either make or break that story for you.
So critical.
In morons. As a concession, I did watch the ending cutscene on YouTube after.
Oh my god, you.
As a concession. Oh, it's such kindness. Thank you, Jim. Thank you. Oh, merciful.
I watched the clip though. Oh my god.
Oddly, it didn't make me raise the score.
Okay. That doesn't. Why did you consider that said like a victory? Like, haha.
Yeah.
Showed you. It is like
showed them.
I didn't change my mind.
I don't know why he didn't just power through and beat the final boss, but if Jim's opinion was one that I sought and it was consistent, like I could get some value out of a video, that review, where it's like, okay, at least he played 99% of it. Like he probably can deliver a good sense of what it's like to play generally. But like with certain games, like if you were to like review Final Fantasy VII before you even get out of Midgar, it's like.
If someone was to review Bloodborne's bosses,
but again, no one's going to do that though. You can't go to the extreme opposite. Like he played 99% of the game. That's fucking enough. and then his opinion, nothing changed. He could write that review at 99% and then do the rest of it, and that review would not change. No one's writing a review before getting out of Midgar. Well, like in the, I guess the original Final Fantasy VII, because the remake, that's the entire game is Midgar. But fucking no one's gonna write a Final Fantasy VII PS1 review and not have left Midgar. That is such an extreme in the other direction that no one's gonna fucking do that unless they say, hey, here's like a review of Midgar Final Fantasy VII. But I can't. You're going to like the extreme opposite. That is not. I don't understand.
Had old hunters attached, and they were playing it all, and they said, "Listen, I can review the bosses. I may have missed a couple at the end, but I've got it." It's like which couple at the end? It's like, oh, you know, Maria and Koss and Ludwig. You'd be like, you missed. Like, I can see people being furious and be like, "Whoa, calm down! I fought like 18 bosses. Is that not good enough?"
Okay, if you're doing a Bloodborne boss review and you didn't do all the bosses, what is that review? Like, I would imagine if you're that kind of review, you're breaking down all the bosses, you would do all the expectation there is you would do all the bosses and then break down all the bosses. If you're doing that kind of boss review. If you're doing a general boss review, as in like, hey, here's, you know, the bosses and they're like difficult, but if you go into them with the right tool set, you can overcome. You don't have to fight every boss to know, like, generally the bosses are gonna. I don't understand. Again, it's like a different type of review. If you're doing a type of review where it's like a shot for shot breakdown analysis, then the expectation is you're doing your analysis, you know? But if it's just like a generalized review, you don't have to go that deep, man. You can definitely, and a lot of the Bloodborne bosses are completely fucking optional. Like, you can review that game and do a great review and not have fought every single fucking boss. And it's just not necessary.
It's like, turns out, no, it's not.
Skipping bosses. Go ahead.
For those who don't know, that's just those three of the best bosses in the whole game.
Yeah.
There was an.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna make a cheeky reference and say about the whole not playing through the end thing. Like, imagine if you got a Roger Ebert review. It's like, yeah, I watched about 75% of The Sixth Sense.
Yeah.
It was all really predictable. It really needed like a twist and you know, something to kind of really tie it all together. I felt that kind of boring, really. It's like,
dude, there are some films or stories that are told that really don't, like, everything doesn't click right in until that like latter third sort of thing.
It's the crescendos, the climax. There's so many different ways to do it, but like a lot of the times, it's essential part of the story to see how it all ties together.
Get the pledge, the turn, and the pristine.
Ooh,
there you go. Yeah, especially you
that's another one. That ending there. Imagine not seeing the
prestige doesn't make any sense if you don't watch the last third.
I didn't even want to reference it, but like both reveals. Imagine skipping out on both reveals.
Imagine if you were playing Mass Effect and then you got to Earth and you're like, yeah, I think I'm done. Like, and then you go on the internet. It's like, wait, what? Why is everybody? What's everybody so up in arms about?
Bioshock, you give up at Hephaestus. It's like that's as far as you get. Just be like, you're gonna review the story and you haven't even.
You know, sometimes the ending might not change your opinion. Sometimes it might change it dramatically.
Yeah,
that's always a possibility. Why remove yourself? Why limit yourself in this way?
There are movies where the ending absolutely makes it. There's some movies where I did not enjoy it up until the ending. I'm like, oh wow, that makes the whole thing way better. And there's movies, and I won't name the names in case you ever want to watch it, but there's movies where it was all a dream or was all in the person's mind. And
bringing up movies is so irrelevant here. Like, a movie is so much less of a time investment that you might as well just finish the fucking movie, especially if you're reviewing the movie. I mean, it's one thing to just be like a casual fucking, oh, here's what I think about this movie. But if you're calling yourself a movie reviewer, it's so much less of a time investment than a video game. You're not going to be that miserable during a movie review. It's so irrelevant. I don't even want to talk about movies or TV shows here. TV shows have a bit more investment, and they can change from episode to episode. I already said this, but there could be different people involved in an episode of a TV show that could significantly change what you'd feel about it just from episode to episode. But a movie is typically, sometimes they do bring in like different directors for like different segments of a movie, but it's so much less of a runtime. You're there for so much less of the amount of time. It's like it's completely irrelevant to that of a runtime of a video game. Especially, there's so much more shit to analyze in a video game than just like the audio visual experience.
It's all the events of the film.
Yeah, you can obviously go multiple directions. Someone just mentioned Hot Fuzz. Imagine you stopped when he first sort of gave up on the investigation, went back to just chilling out. You'd be like,
so many examples.
The film just chilled out.
The ending of Saw, the first Saw movie, you don't get to see the twist. Like it's just there's every movie ending twist would just be
talk about a movie that needs that final. All the help it can get. Jeez.
Oh man.
Another review written by someone who didn't finish the game. I think the outlet was IGN. I could be wrong. It was a long time ago. But it came out that their early copy of the game was busted and they couldn't play the final third. Regardless, they published a review anyway, confident that...
Okay, so
that could be a problem. I'm fine with it if you make that clear.
Yep. No, apparently you knew that, so it seems like they made that clear in that review? Question mark?
Maybe.
I would need to check.
Might be something afterward, right? But maybe.
Yeah.
Hold on, now you're saying if you make that clear, oh, it's totally fine. How does anyone know that Sterling didn't finish? How does anyone know that Sterling didn't finish Tears of the Kingdom? Did they not make that clear? I didn't read the review, so I don't know. But if anyone is going to make a comment, you didn't finish the game, then there has to be somewhere in there they said that they didn't finish the game. So is it okay if they make it clear? Because then everything you said up to this point is completely invalid. It's okay if it's okay if they made it clear that they didn't finish the game. That's not the issue you have, though. That is not the issue you have. It feels like now you're doubling back, trying to defend IGN for making it clear if they did, but not Sterling.
Just tell me.
Hold on, we're gonna pull up the review here. Just to see. Now we're gonna take a look at it. Search for finish. No. Complete. I don't know. It doesn't say. I don't think it says whether they finished it or not. But it seems like people are claiming they didn't finish it because all the screenshots have like X amount of hearts, right? So people are like, "Wow, oh my God, look how many hearts he has! He didn't finish the game," which is complete like bullshit. Considering this is a game where you can choose between hearts or stamina, and if you look at their stamina, they have a shitload of stamina. But I don't know what keyword to search. I try finish and complete. and like ending, but because if they're going to claim now that you don't have to, if you state that you didn't finish it, oh, it's totally fine.
Just tell me. Yeah, that's it. Just tell me. If you said, like, I'm reviewing all of the bosses in Bloodborne except for these ones, and I've heard they're pretty good, but this is my opinion on all the other ones, you'd be like, all right, you know, I can't take issue with that. That's fine. You made it clear.
Was enough. People are mad at Jim because he wasn't disclosing these things.
Well, it's so simple, dude. It's this Zelda game is a 7 out of 10, but you haven't played more than like 10% of it. I don't care.
Right.
You haven't played more than 10%? Dude, how do you know that? How do you know that? Whether they said it or not, how are people making that claim? How are people making that claim just on screenshots alone? Because maybe you don't want to spoil the end game content, so you're only using footage from like early to mid game, and people are using that as evidence that you didn't fucking play the game. This is insane.
That's it. That's as far as it goes. And a lot of people will be like, you know, there's going to be people who'd say you'd like it a lot more if you played more. There's also going to be people who like you. The way you talk about the game, it sounds like you know nothing about it. You need to play more of it. Like those two factions exist.
Right. It just seems like it would be worthwhile to load your statements a lot with, to be clear, I haven't, because when we did the Forge on it, I was the one who hadn't completed it, and I feel like I said like 10 times, bear in mind I haven't completed it, bear in mind this is where I'm at, you know, bear in mind.
Disclaimer.
This would all be subverted by, or counteracted by just calling it first impressions. And that's the thing, if you play Zelda for 10% of the whole thing, that's probably what you should call that.
I don't know where they're getting this 10% number.
Being clear about what you're trying to say and where you're coming from, but I think I get the impression that if pressed to talk a little bit more about the perspective on Zelda, that Sterling would say, yeah, I didn't complete it, but I think that, but this is it, right? This is it. This is my statement on that game, and that's it, and I'm done. Rather than admitting, yeah, could be wrong, could be completely wrong about a lot of things. I could be wrong, but you know, I have limited time. There are other things I'm more interested in. You know, I feel like it would be much.
Wouldn't have much to add.
A little bit of like earnest honesty can go a long way, instead of just like this petulance, you know.
I mean, yeah, this is pretty. this is a strange video.
Because they're making, okay, so Sterling is making this video because people were claiming that they did not finish Tears of the Kingdom with zero evidence of not completing Tears of the Kingdom. Now they can come out and say like, yeah, I didn't complete it, but nowhere in this review that I quickly scanned, I didn't read the entirety of it, but it doesn't seem like it says anywhere in this review that they didn't complete the game. All they have to go off of are screenshots that just looks like, look how many hearts you don't have. So clearly you only got this far in this game, which is like shitty. I'm almost glad that they actually didn't come out and say whether or not, because I don't think Sterling said, yeah, I didn't finish this game, or I don't even think they said otherwise, that no, I did finish this game. It's just people looking at the screenshots and then coming up with assumptions.
Such a sense of bitterness, like I said earlier, because I can understand.
So yeah, I would be bitter too if people were like, wow, look at this idiot, didn't finish the game, or giving it a 7. And they're only upset because it's a 7. And if you did finish the game, or if you did finish the game and gave it a 7, they would still fucking be upset. But if you didn't finish the game and gave it a 10, no one would give a fuck.
And the confusion sometimes someone would say like, what's the equivalent of getting to pass the tutorial or something in Bioshock versus Elden Ring, and someone might be shocked to find out it's like probably killing Margot, like that's actually completing the tutorial of I imagine some people would be like, that's insane, that took me like 30 hours, and it's like, okay, but like that's the truth. I don't know what to tell you.
Understand. That's just reality.
Yeah, like you haven't experienced anywhere near what it has to offer when you've only done that. I'm sorry.
If you have limited time, then just play like some of those, Sony cinematic like action adventure game. Maybe not God of War because that's pretty long. Play Uncharted or something, and do reviews of Uncharted because you can beat those in like 10, 15 hours.
That's more suitable for that. But they take on these games that actually have like extensive information, and then they don't do their job.
Zelda is 100+ hour game,
Oh, it's a chunky boy. I had lots and lots of streams of that game. That was crazy.
I think
I feel like I'm gonna like rehash a lot of stuff I said already, but they brought up Elden Ring again. Again, Elden Ring was a game that the reviewers were under heavy time constraints to get those reviews out on the embargo date. So many of those reviews were people who either rushed through the game to get their review out, or they put up a review and didn't finish the game, which I think was a majority of these reviews. But either way, they gave the most of those reviews were positive scores. So ultimately, nobody gave a fuck that they didn't. Nobody gave a fuck that it was rushed, and nobody gave a fuck that some of them didn't finish the game. All they gave a fuck about was, well, it's a positive score, so I'm happy. Like a lot of things they're saying just are not the reality. Because the reality is no one actually gives a fuck, especially with Elden Ring, because it got such glowing reviews, regardless of the playtime.
Except Margot's wetness with, is it Margot in the films?
It's Margit and Morgot, and then Murgo is in Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Okay. All of that. Yeah, there you go.
I can see how you mixed that up.
Someone said Margot
Get
Robbie.
it right.
Margot Robbie, the fellow.
That's what I thought you were saying at first.
I'm assuming you mean Margit, right? Not the
giant
guy,
Margot Robbie.
not the guy in the capital.
The funny thing is, you'd be able to understand what I'm talking about easier if I just said, yeah, the tutorial boss, basically, the first, not the guy at the front with the horse, but yeah, the big boy that everyone got stuck on. But as soon as you pass him, you're basically free and clear. You start going real fast.
Okay, I'm gonna stop here. I've watched like 80% of this video, so I feel like I know enough to give a review of this. And look, I would have loved if on this panel someone was there to be like, you guys are like bullshit. Like, you guys are fucking bullshitting. Nowhere does it say that they only played 10%. Nowhere in this review does it say they didn't finish the game. And they're not making the claim that if they played more, they're going to give it a worse score out of spite. They're just saying that if it overstays its welcome, like the more I play, it's definitely not going to get higher. This is how I feel. I played a significant majority of the game, enough that I can give a factual review to inform people of a purchasing decision, and it's going to serve, my review is going to serve its purpose, the purpose that it needs to serve, and without any factual inaccuracies. If people want to look at the screenshots I provide and say that I didn't play enough, which is the most bullshit thing ever, then that's fucking shit. I would have venom as well. I would have venom as well if I was in that position. So, I think I'm just gonna stop here. If people want to check this video out, it's EFAP number 250. I've got the clip linked in the description, as well as the original James Stephanie Sterling video. If you want to just watch that in full, you really don't need to. They've clipped the important parts. It is a little verbose, but I've seen enough of this. I'm just like rehashing everything I've said numerous times already. So, Uncle Dolph said, I just got here. Can you give me a quick rundown? No, just rewind the video. I'm out of here.